Part 33. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 329. Wang Qianglin did not take Kellen into the house immediately, but stood outside and waited for a while. He looked left and right for signs as if identifying the road, and then naturally led the believers to another intersection. Then she said to the new believers around her, "You can leave. But if you dare to leak our information, I think you don't want blood to be everywhere here, right?" The new believers nodded like chickens pecking at rice, quickly expressed that they knew what to do, and then left on the other side. For those of them who are trying to survive, it is better to stay away as soon as possible. No one has the idea of reporting it. There was a sound coming from the house just now. Wang Qianglin pulled Kellen into the alley on the other side, not going to the house where the low voice of prayer came from. Just to be on the safe side, they didn't say anything to the new believers along the way. She deliberately observed them just now to prevent those people from knowing their destination. Although Wang Qianglin threatened those people, she would not put her trust in those people. Over the years, she only believed in herself. Has the research institute been discovered? Crane was worried about this, but he quickly refuted the statement himself. No, if it was discovered, this cannot be the case. Maybe it's just that the Void sect happens to be praying in that room. If not, it can only be a trap. Wang Qianglin was very cautious, because this was the last difficulty. As long as the two of them entered the research institute, the rest would fall into place, and they would not have to turn back and leave Harlan City. Crane felt that it was right to be cautious, but being cautious without meaning would only lead to missed opportunities, and fighting with the air would only waste precious time. To avoid long nights and long dreams, we should complete the task as soon as possible. Wang Qianglin nodded. Both sides' ideas were correct. They were both aiming to complete the task. However, they had different concepts, so they did not refute each other. Just like before, Crane always accommodated her ideas. According to the analysis and calculation of the organization's professional department, the two people's personalities are complementary. He is relatively rational and cautious, while Crane is slightly impulsive and emotional. On the other hand, Kellen is kind-hearted by nature, while Wang Qianglin is more selfish. For her now, climbing to a higher position is the most important thing. She doesn't care at all about the life and death of ordinary people in Harlan City. That's why the organization assigned Wang Qianglin to get close to Crane. During the years the two were together, she ultimately had no special feelings for Crane. In Wang Qianglin's view, the two have complementary personalities, but that doesn't mean they are suitable for each other. She prefers ambitious people, people who can climb up alongside her, rather than people like Crane who are only suitable for being tools. But for the sake of her own future, she still stayed with Crane and became his caring girlfriend, because to the organization, Crane's value was actually even greater. The two agreed on a plan. First of all, those praying believers should not be there 24 hours a day, so they had to choose a suitable place to observe until those people left their destination. The best location is naturally the house opposite the main entrance of the house, which is where Luoguang and the others are. The two of them were walking back when they saw the followers of the Void sect leaving the room. The opportunity is rare. We don't know whether the other party will end the prayer directly or change shifts. Let's get in now. Crane couldn't help but look happy, said something, and immediately went over there. Wang Qianglin wanted Kellen to be more stable and check the situation first, but since Kellen came to Harlan City, his strength has greatly increased, his personality has become bolder and stronger, and his girlfriend can't hold her back. But Crane was her golden pig, and she couldn't let him run away, so she quickly followed him and said next to Crane, "Don't act too anxious. Being suspected will lead to failure in the end. Since we can't stop it, we should try our best to do things safely instead of complaining about the other party's wrong decision." Luoguang and Holy Mother Jasmine saw everything that Kellen did. Although Kellen and his wife acted a scene in front of the house, they did not deceive Luo Guang and his wife. Luo Guang asked the Holy Mother to ask the praying believers to leave the house in order to lure the two people in and confirm whether they were the people they were looking for. After Kellen and the two entered the house, they immediately jumped out of the second-floor window and walked directly outside the room without entering the house rashly. Jasmine picked up the controller hidden behind the stone on the ground. When the sound of some kind of mechanism opening came from the room, she immediately pressed the red button on it. A small explosion sounded, and the room was instantly enveloped in blue mist. The two of them received the same treatment as Luo Guang in the ceremony room. Crane and Wang Qianglin had just used the key to open the door of the research institute, and they were immediately hit by this change. But their reaction speed was very fast, and they immediately rushed to the entrance of the research institute, because that was the only place that was not shrouded in blue mist. Regardless of whether Lan Wu is going to die or not, in the eyes of Kellen and the others, they have been caught in a trap and they must leave quickly. Close the door, Wang Qianglin shouted and asked Crane to press the button next to her. But it was too late. Luo Guang and Jasmine followed closely and entered the door, and the door of the research institute was barely closed. Okay, now we have no support. Luo Guang was not worried about this, he said casually, and then looked at the two Kellens with curiosity. They met at the twin apartments, but didn't have much communication, because he didn't see any problems between them at that time. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. But this is normal, at that time Luo Guanglian didn't have a definite answer whether the institute really existed or not. Outside the door of the institute, Amir, who was not far away, saw all this and obviously guessed that it was the entrance to the institute, so his goal was also accomplished. However, for the sake of safety, he decided to go over and take a look to confirm the situation. If the people who just entered the room were not inside, it would be enough to prove it. He still had his lover, so he would not rashly enter the blue mist and the institute, but there was no sound or fighting in the room, which was impossible. So, Amir's next step was to find a way to tell the anti-biochemical organization outside this information, and it happened that Rahim could help him. He slowly moved away from the room, and then he returned. Inside the institute. Although Kellen and Wang Qianglin inhaled the blue mist containing the Harlan virus, they did not have any adverse reactions. Because they were all injected with universal virus vaccines before going to Harlan City, inhaling a small amount of Harlan virus blue mist would not cause them to faint directly like the believers. So, when the two saw Luo Guang and the other two coming in, they immediately took out the assault rifles under their robes and were about to deal with the enemies in front of them. But the two sides were very close. Luo Guang rushed over directly, and two straight knives directly cut the assault rifles of the two people into two pieces. If it weren't for Kellen and the other two letting go quickly, their hands would have been cut off. As the key opened the door of the institute, the other people in the institute already knew that the people from the headquarters had come. But what happened afterwards was obviously beyond their imagination. Two unknown people rushed in and the two sides were fighting. Everything was recorded by the camera in the institute. The artificial intelligence system immediately reported the matter to the headquarters and controlled the automatic machine gun in the institute to attack Luo Guang and the Virgin Mary. In order not to hurt Kellen and the other two, the artificial intelligence prepared to attack by burst shooting. But as soon as the machine gun stretched out from the ceiling, Luo Guang and Jasmine captured Wang Qianglin and Kellen respectively and blocked them in front of the machine gun. "Stop the attack," Wang Qianglin shouted. Received the key holder's order to turn off the alert mode. The artificial intelligence of the institute was very obedient and immediately retracted the machine gun on the ceiling. Turn off the instant upload mode. Not knowing whether it was because Luo Guang did not use force, she shouted again, and in order to avoid her embarrassment from being known by her superiors, she immediately turned off the uploading of surveillance videos. Luo Guang was a little surprised to see that the other party was so smart, so he did not stop him, but changed his posture to suppress him. In addition to solving the problems of the Institute, he now has to learn the true identity of the organization behind the Institute from these two people. Jasmine said that no one in the Institute knew, but these two people who were entrusted with important tasks by the organization must know. Lin, Clan was pressed down by Jasmine, whose physical fitness became stronger because of the night demon, and could not move. He thought he had become very powerful in Harlan City before, and he realized his weakness again. Now he can only watch his girlfriend being pressed down by others. Holy Mother, your goal is revenge, go and get it done first. Luo Guang did not use his mind to convey the message, but directly said the matter. Jasmine had seen Luo Guang's power, nodded, and said, the artificial intelligence of the Institute is controlled by her who has the key, you should be careful. Wang Qianglin was very surprised to hear this. The matter of artificial intelligence and the key was said by the unknown person in front of him, which meant that the other party had a certain understanding of the Institute, and it was very likely that someone leaked the secret. Kran was released by the Holy Mother and wanted to get up and fight back immediately, but he couldn't catch the Holy Mother at all. He just stood up and the Holy Mother's figure disappeared in the corridor. Lying on the ground, Wang Qianglin, who was pressed a little behind his neck by Luo Guang, looked at the Holy Mother who ran away, and kept thinking in his heart. If this matter is not handled well, he may be directly abandoned by the organization and disposed of like garbage. He obviously did nothing wrong, why is it always not going well? Wang Qianglin thought angrily in his heart. Let her go, since he couldn't catch the other party's companion, Kellen could only think of a way to save his girlfriend. What is the name of your organization? Luo Guang ignored Kellen and asked the question calmly. Don't want to know. Wang Qianglin was worried that her boyfriend would say the name of the organization for her own safety, so she shouted first. Since the other party didn't want to drink the toast and wanted to drink the penalty wine, Luo Guang didn't hesitate to take out a needle and inject the T. Veronica virus, base station version, into Wang Qianglin's buttocks. But the needle didn't pierce the other party's clothes and was stopped outside. Curious in his heart, Luo Guang didn't have any thoughts of sympathy for the beauty. He ignored Kellen, who was furious and helpless, and tore off Wang Qianglin's clothes, revealing the tights inside. He had suspected that the power behind the Institute was the Apocalypse organization before, and when he saw the tights inside, he felt very familiar. The straight knife in his hand ignored Kellen's shouting and cut towards Wang Qianglin's buttocks. There was already a rip there, so Luo Guang naturally cut there, otherwise he would be treated as a beast if he tore someone else's clothes. Wang Qianglin couldn't see Luo Guang's movements above her, but she still noticed that the clothes on her buttocks were torn open. She thought that the other party was going to do something shameful to her, but suddenly her buttocks hurt and she started to curse. You damn guy! But to Luo Guang, these words didn't hurt, and these curses were several levels lower than those of Wesker, who had been defeated several times by him. Perhaps he had already made up his mind, and Luo Guang was not surprised to see the green hemostatic agent flowing out of the other party's tights. Harlan clenched his hands, his heart was full of anger. His girlfriend was insulted by the enemy like this, but he had no way to do anything, and could only watch the other party. Wang Qianglin and Kyle Crane. Luo Guang looked at the two people in front of him and felt that if he had not met Jill before meeting Wang Wei, he might have become a couple like these two people now. But then again, both Wang Qianglin and Wang Wei have the last name Wang. Is this a coincidence or a special rule of the Apocalypse organization? Although Ada Wong has worked in many organizations in the game of Resident Evil, the game did not make it clear which organization Ada actually worked for until Luo Guang crossed over. If it is not a coincidence, is it possible that Ada's real organization is also the Apocalypse organization? Her behavior of running around to collect viruses seems to meet the needs of the Apocalypse organization. With more and more questions in his mind, Luo Guang looked at the angry Kellen and said, if you want to save her, answer my questions well. Which side are you on? Kellen was very entangled, and Wang Qianglin naturally stopped him and said, "Don't say it." But her eyes blinked when she looked at Kellen where Luo Guang couldn't see, as if conveying something. Seeing this, Kellen understood what the other party meant. He cheered up and told Luo Guang the answer Wang Qianglin had given him, saying, "We are from FBC. Using eyes to send signals, this FBC is the shortest." Luo Guang directly exposed the other party's words. His unequivocal denial of his answer made Kellen even more pessimistic. Wang Qianglin would not give up easily, and immediately lied, "You'd better not ask, otherwise this institute will self-destruct. Then we will die together. Then you can just disable the self-destruct system like you did just now. This is not something I can decide." In fact, Wang Qianglin is like an imperial envoy in ancient times, and the key in her hand is the imperial edict. As for what she said about artificial intelligence detonating the institute, it is naturally false. Because the Apocalypse organization does not believe in the security of artificial intelligence at all, it will not give such a large authority to the artificial intelligence system. Just because Wang Qianglin was arrested this time and artificial intelligence cannot play a role in destroying evidence, it cannot deny the Apocalypse organization's approach. Similarly, we cannot deny the role of artificial intelligence just because it caused an accident. The key is to achieve a balance, so although the Apocalypse organization does not trust it, it still uses the artificial intelligence system. However, compared with the Red Emperor of Umbrella, the performance of the artificial intelligence of the Apocalypse is much worse. But the Red Emperor is the strongest artificial intelligence in the world today, so Luo Guang dared to go deep into this research institute. As long as there is a network, he has a way to control the computer system here. Well, let's do the second thing first. Please destroy all the viruses here. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 330. Hearing Luo Guang's words, Kellen and Wang Wei were stunned. The other party's words were exactly what they wanted. As long as you clean up the organizational matters on your own, then just survive. And who are the people who know how to clean up viruses? They are good people. So as long as you don't do anything extraordinary, you will definitely survive. The above are all optimistic thoughts in Crane's heart, so he was afraid that the other party would regret it, so he immediately said, "We promise you." Wang Qianglin did not answer immediately, pretending to be confused. Unlike her silly young boyfriend, she showed what was on her mind directly on her face, and in the end she pretended to be confused and agreed with Luo Guang's statement. Luo Guang saw the reactions of the two people in his eyes, and thought that it was indeed the right choice for him to give priority to catching this scheming girl. For safety reasons, he energized the hardened armored straight knife in his hand to soften it again, and made a pair of handcuffs to cuff Wang Qianglin's hands. This time it highlights a careful calculation and does not need to be destroyed by other means like before. In addition, he also injected Wang Qianglin with the T Veronica virus, base station version. However, Luo Guang did not use this ability immediately, but waited to fully control the research institute before making a decision. Then he asked Kellen to walk in the front, while he pressed Wang Qianglin and walked behind. The three of them walked deeper into the institute, and soon they saw the security guards who were divided into several pieces by the Virgin Jasmine. Looking at the assault rifle on the ground, Crane didn't dare to think anything wrong. Wang Qianglin, who knew more internal information about the Apocalypse organization, looked at the defeated security guards and had a certain understanding of the Virgin's combat effectiveness. These security guards are not ordinary people, but specially made people trained by the Apocalypse organization using various excellent genetic adjustments. But from the perspective of the Apocalypse organization, these people are just a byproduct or experimental product in their exploration of human evolution, and they cannot enjoy employee benefits. Overall, these guys are not stable, so they need to wear specialized emotion suppressor collars. Naturally, This collar also has the function of incapacitating people to prevent them from running away. So a Muro-Ray, who can instruct a strong person like the Holy Mother to do things, is obviously not an ordinary person. Although Wan Qianglin was being escorted, in order to obtain information, she still took the initiative to ask, "Is Amrole your real name? Have you ever asked a question like this? Who will tell you whether it is true or false?" As long as Luo Guang wants to, he can turn into Charaznable, who has blonde hair and is good at flying kicks. Wan Qianglin naturally knew that her question was silly, but it was still qualified as the beginning of a chat. So she ignored the other party's ridicule and said, "It goes without saying that it's a fake name, and maybe even the appearance is fake." Thinking that it was a wise choice for him to change his appearance and take a new name, Luo Guang replied, "Your organization is so powerful, in order to keep it confidential, you always have a pseudonym or a pseudonym for conversation, right?" He in turn directed the conversation to the other party's organization. Although such a situation did exist in her own organization, Wan Qianglin didn't fall for the trick and casually changed the topic back. "Come to think of it, you called that woman the Holy Mother. Could it be that she is the Holy Mother of the Void sect?" The two sides tested each other, but neither really answered the other's questions and rambled on about the topic. "Yes, she came back from hell to seek revenge from you." Luo Guang didn't care about the Madonna, since Jasmine would focus on acting in the darkness from now on. However, he will still keep some key information confidential or modify it. Revenge, the person who interrupted was Crane. With his organization's style, he was obsessed with seeking a future for mankind and did not act openly. Why would it make people resentful? Our organization basically has no interaction with other people. How can we make enemies with others? Wan Qianglin was also a little curious, so she didn't interrupt Crane's question. "Are all your organizations saints?" Luo Guang felt that Crane was a bit naive and said, "You are all human beings. Since we are human beings, disputes will naturally arise." After settling the matter here, he planned to let these two people become his spies to learn more about the Apocalypse organization. Luo Guang saw that Kellen and the others didn't reply, and said, "Since your organization is so good, why did a biohazard incident happen in Harlan City? I don't understand why you people who study biochemical viruses are so fond of putting the research institute in below densely populated cities. We are here to correct this mistake." What Wan Qianglin said made Crane, who was walking in front, pause for a moment, because he knew that his mission this time was just to clean up matters related to the organization. But he quickly returned to normal and took a step to the side, avoiding the debris on the ground. Luo Guang noticed Crane's unusual reaction, and then deliberately poured dirty water on the opponent's organization, saying, "Correction? How are you going to correct it? You were not seen when Harlan City first broke out. Didn't you still show up in the gym afterwards? Did you spread the virus?" Wan Qianglin immediately replied as Luo Guang expected, "We didn't do it. We don't know who those people who transported the zombies are." Crane nodded and agreed, "That's right, we don't need to do these things at all. Otherwise, we wouldn't have to come over to correct the mistakes." Their statement was exactly the same as that of the Holy Mother Jasmine, and they did not think that the amplification of this incident was caused by the Apocalypse organization. According to the location that the Virgin Mary told him in his mind, Luo Guang came to the director's office. But to be precise, the director of this institute should be called the supervisor. The door of the supervisor's office was opened violently, and Luo Guang pushed Clan and the others in. "Is it solved?" Luo Guang asked, looking at the Virgin Mary who had just put on the sun god mask again with her back to him. Jasmine's chest was rising and falling, breathing hard, as if she had just done some intense exercise. Slightly bypassing the semi-arc metal desk, Luo Guang saw the blood on the ground and what Jasmine had done. It was like slicing pork, and the thing on the ground could not be seen as a person. Jasmine turned around, looked at Luo Guang, and ask slowly, "Don't we need to kill these two people?" "Not for the time being. Do you remember what I asked you to do before?" "Are you sure?" Luo Guang asked. He meant to persuade the two good guys to leave the Apocalypse organization. Although it was not made clear in the words, Luo Guang made it clear in his telepathic communication. Jasmine nodded to show that she understood, and directly used telepathic communication to tell Luo Guang that the supervisor's office was the central control console of the Institute system, and told Luo Guang the computer password and other things. This also shows that Jasmine was not completely blinded by hatred, and she still remembered what Luo Guang had told her. As for information such as the computer password, it was obviously obtained by Jasmine from the supervisor of the institute. However, Luo Guang did not need these. He was worried that the other party would say a false password, causing a chain reaction and leading to some accidents. The tragic scene after the indiscriminate killing that Kran saw along the way, coupled with the current situation of the supervisor, made him unbearable. Although his girlfriend was in the hands of the other party, he could not act rashly, but he still wanted to express his anger. "What is your real purpose? Why do you do such a thing? Didn't I say it before? This is for revenge." "Oh, yes, it's just that she has a grudge against you. She and I are temporary partners. Before you came to the Harlan Temple, I fought with her several times. This is the fact." He is not trying to distance himself from the relationship. He is not kind enough to stop the other party from taking revenge, saying that revenge will never end. Then why does she hate the people here so much? Wang Qianglin felt that this was an opportunity to obtain more information. The people who escorted him before did not say such a long paragraph. Luo Guang did not answer, but suddenly handcuffed Wang Qianglin's feet and pushed him down. Kellen wanted to catch Wang Qianglin, but Luo Guang had already approached him. But he had just raised his arms and had not yet formed a blocking posture in front of him, and Luo Guang's right palm had already been placed on his chest. Clan suddenly felt that breathing became painful. Before he could react, he was thrown to the ground by Luo Guang, his hands and feet were cuffed, and the virus was injected. "I was in a hurry, so I did it while talking." Luo Guang ignored the two people's curses and questions about what was in the syringe, moved the two people to his field of vision, and then connected his watch to the computer. Long live the Umbrella Universal Socket. The watch automatically started the program, and the first thing was to send a signal to the virtual server set up by the Red Emperor through the network. This was to ensure that the location of the Red Emperor would not be leaked. While confirming the situation of the Red Emperor's attack on the Research Institute system here, Luo Guang told the story of the Virgin Mary. "Are you saying that she was originally one of ours? This is impossible. People in our organization will not betray the organization," Wang Qianglin shouted while trying to break free from the handcuffs with both hands. "She said this because there has never been a traitor in the organization for hundreds of years. The Apocalypse organization has the technology to clear and modify memories, and the people in the organization rarely go out, and the review of going out is very strict, so it is impossible to betray. In addition, there are other confidentiality measures. The entire confidentiality procedure has been tested for a long time, but there has never been a traitor." Wang Qianglin kept thinking in her heart, wanting to learn the truth about the betrayal from the other party. If she could find a loophole in the confidentiality procedure and report it, she might be able to redeem herself and escape. Until now, she is still planning for her future. And Kran is only thinking about how to break the current predicament, but no matter what method he comes up with, he feels that there is no chance of winning after calculating in the end. Because he and Wang Qianglin together can't beat the villain in front of them. Yes, Luo Guang has been labeled a villain by him now. The system of the Institute has been blocked, all surveillance has been turned off, and the video has been cleared. Master Hong Huang spoke on the computer after completing all the confidentiality measures. Luo Guang was doing two things at the same time, typing on the keyboard to tell Hong Huang the mission target while telling Jasmine's story. The Virgin Mary survived and then took revenge on the Institute. So you see, your organization is not as righteous as the superiors say. I don't believe it. Wang Qianglin resisted Luo Guang's suggestion. Not only a suggestion, Luo Guang also used pheromones that can relax people when telling the story of the Virgin Mary Jasmine, but the effect was far worse than Luo Guang imagined. Wang Qianglin's willpower was higher than he expected. But Kellen seemed to have different ideas. After all, he was not from the Apocalypse organization. Luo Guang glanced at Kellen and noticed the entanglement on his face. He immediately tapped the keyboard, trying to find the black material about the Apocalypse organization, such as Kellen was just a tool of the Apocalypse organization and had always been used. This chapter is not yet finished. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. No search information was found. The Red Emperor, who had already captured the system here, quickly searched the system content here and reported it, and then continued to launch an offensive, trying to break into the computer at the headquarters of the Apocalypse organization. But the Apocalypse organization responded quickly and directly cut off the network from the physical level, leaving the Red Emperor with nowhere to start. Although the Red Emperor still located the network coordinates, the IP address kept changing, so it suspected that this was just a virtual coordinate. If not, the Red Emperor could win before the enemy reacted and cut the network cable. Luo Guang was slightly disappointed to get the feedback from the Red Emperor. After taking out the USB drive and copying the required vaccine and antidote data, he asked Hong Huang to start destroying the research data. The Apocalypse headquarters must have a backup of these data, so this move was to prevent the FBC from coming later. Hearing Wang Qianglin's loud denial, Luo Guang said nothing more, controlling his ability and preparing to completely control Wang Qianglin. The work of the Research Institute has been completed, and the only thing left is the physical removal of the Harlan virus in the Institute. Luo Guang looked at the surveillance on the screen and communicated with Jasmine with his mind. Those two researchers don't seem to be very obedient. I can handle it. Luo Guang watched the Virgin Jasmine knock out and kidnap the two frightened good guys, and said speechlessly, those two researchers are not young, you should take it easy. Also, the door to the secret passage has been cracked, you take them out from there and then go to the Caucasus. Show me your strength on how to go. Is this a test for me? Aren't you worried that I will spread the Harlan virus on the road? No, Luo Guang quickly answered the other party. It was not because of trust, but because Jasmine got his hint, and she didn't resist like Wang Qianglin. Okay, Jasmine's answer was very energetic, and it seemed that because of the revenge, she finally began to relax. The Virgin's side was arranged, and the next thing was Wang Qianglin and clan. Leaving Wang Qianglin aside for the time being, he decided to control him directly as his spy in the Apocalypse. There was no other way. The people of the Apocalypse organization were so hard to find, so he naturally couldn't let her go easily. The problem was how to let Wang Qianglin avoid the physical examination of the other organization. What about Kellen? He might have the same experience as himself, just like Wang Wei deceived him about the memory surgery. So is it possible that Kellen was also deceived? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 331. The system here has been solved. Now you are not afraid of being known to leak the secret, right? Luo Guang said to Wang Qianglin, as if he saw that she was the leader of the two. The two bit their lips tightly, looking like they would never tell. You can still survive if you tell, but if you don't tell, you really have no way to survive. Or will your organization give you medals and upgrade you 2 levels? You are wasting your time. I won't tell you. Kellen will not succumb to the villain. What about you? Wang Qianglin followed Luo Guang's instructions and replied, I won't tell you either. Luo Guang asked Wang Qianglin to act with him for Kellen to see. In fact, he has completely controlled Wang Qianglin now. After all, Wang Qianglin has not broken through the limit of human beings, so her willpower can't stop her mental attack. Although the Virgin Mary, a skilled mentalist, cannot control the Harlan virus-infected person without ensuring intelligence, Luo Guang, a novice, still has the system to assist himself, so like other T. Veronica virus-infected people, it will not affect intelligence. Alas, you don't know how to cherish the opportunity I gave you. I know something about your organization. Luo Guang decided to throw out a brick to attract Jade in order to make the whole leak more natural. The two looked unconvinced. They couldn't find any traces of their own organization using search engines, so how could the other party know? The Apocalypse Organization, the pseudonym of your organization. As soon as Luo Guang finished speaking, the faces of the two changed, indicating that his previous speculation was correct. This research institute was organized by the Apocalypse. Also, there are more women in your organization, and it seems that women have a higher status. These are all deduced by Luo Guang. He first asked Wang Qianglin with his mind, and then Wang Qianglin's hands behind her would give a 1 or 2 gesture to answer Luo Guang according to whether it was correct or not. 1 means correct, and 2 means wrong. Just like the night demon, Wang Qianglin couldn't answer him with his mind, so he could only use the stupid method. Luo Guang didn't actually know much about the apocalypse, and a lot of the information was unconfirmed, so he could only confirm it step by step and then say it out. The purpose is to see if he can pull Clan over to deal with the threats that the apocalypse may make in the future. When a secret organization is no longer secret, the danger will naturally decrease. And your meeting with Clan is not accidental, but it is arranged by your organization. Just like himself, he added in his heart. Luo Guang's words made Clan's pupils dilate, and he looked at Wang Qianglin in surprise, as if he wanted to know the answer. Wang Qianglin pretended to deny it, but as soon as she opened her mouth, Luo Guang said first, Clan, you are just the precious genetic data of the Apocalypse organization, she doesn't really love you. Luo Guang's view of Wang Qianglin was not wrong, she did not love Clan, because he had never seen the worry and love for Clan in this woman's eyes. Kellen, I just want to ask you one question, how is your nightlife? How often do you have sex after she got your genetic genes? Has she ever taken the initiative to speak? The answer is of course no, but Kellen still struggled to refute, you know shit. That's because Lin is more reserved. She is a more traditional woman. Was she reserved the first time you two? Luo Guang shut Kellen up with just one sentence. It was indeed Wang Qianglin who took the initiative to propose, although the specific situation of that day has been forgotten, I only remember that I seemed to have been crazy all night. Wang Qianglin chose the hotel, and she also packed up the genetic material in the plastic bag, and took it away. Wang Qianglin's silence was taken as a tacit agreement by Kellen, and with Luo Guang's hint, he made up a lot of things on his own. Also, Kellen, you have joined the Apocalypse organization, but Wang Qianglin is the only one who knows a lot of things, and the reason for your statement is because your confidentiality level is not enough. This is a relatively normal thing, but Kellen couldn't help but start to doubt and couldn't stop. Luo Guang knew what Kellen was thinking when he saw his expression, and he struck while the iron was hot. So Kellen, can you really confirm that the Apocalypse organization is just? Is the path you are taking now correct? Wang Qianglin seemed to have been told so many things, and she looked like she had given up, and suddenly said, yes, so what? This is all my job, what's wrong with climbing up? Lin, what are you talking about? Kellen looked at Wang Qianglin and asked loudly. Don't you understand yet? I don't love you at all, you are just a tool for me to climb up from beginning to end. Wang Qianglin looked like she had given up, and coupled with the suspicion she had generated before, Kellen did not realize that he had fallen into Luo Guang's script. If you want to climb up, you still have to be alive. The script stopped here temporarily, and continuing would only be too much, so Luo Guang brought the topic back to the original question. I understand what you mean, Wang Qianglin replied, and embarked on a road of no return. The real name of the Apocalypse organization is only known to the core members, and it is a name commonly used by other members. The so-called core members are those with a level of Omega. Wang Qianglin is only at level B now, and it is not good enough. By the way, Wang Wei is now at level A. She originally had the opportunity to be promoted to level A+, but she failed the promotion mission of contacting Luo Guang and obtaining genetic material. Even when she tried to carry out the mission with Luo Guang, she also failed to get a blood sample with DNA. Luo Guang, who was unharmed and had no hair loss problems, made her return empty-handed. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. This mission has a time limit. She was naturally called back after failing the mission. Luo Guang did not give up completely, but just temporarily dealt with it coldly and looked for other ways. As for what Luo Guang knew, it would not cause any trouble to the Apocalypse organization. After all, it was all screened by Wang Wei. The higher the level, the more intelligence you can see, and the more resources you can call on the organization, so you can have more power. This is what Wang Qianglin pursues. There are naturally reasons for her own personality, and also a kind of resistance to the genetic hierarchy of the organization. B level, this is the label she was labeled by the organization after she was born, which means that no matter how hard she tries, the highest position level she can reach is only B level. So she wants to break the old rules of this organization, climb up all the way, break the boundaries of her birth level, and tell those who rate her that she is not just a B level. But now the facts seem to prove the foresight of her organization. Wang Qianglin really couldn't break the limit of the class and fell in this mission. So, no matter how hard I try, I am just a B-level member, and I don't know many confidential things. Luo Guang didn't let the other party talk about his own things. It was Wang Qianglin who said it after receiving his order to reveal the information of the apocalypse. This made him feel that this control ability seemed a little different. Could it be because of the retention of intelligence? While listening to Wang Qianglin's words, he thought and asked casually, why did you send people to get genetic material? Optimize the human gene structure. Adjust people, before it was the destiny plan, and now the adjuster has also come out. Luo Guang complained in his heart. Yes, the security guards we met on the road are byproducts of the adjustment plan. We generally call them enhanced people or semi-adjusted people. Ha, Luo Guang laughed dryly twice. But the plan failed. The problem is that the people born after adjustment are very unstable. Their lifespan is as short as that of ordinary clones, and their overall abilities are greatly reduced. This does not meet the requirements of the organization at all. I have a question. How do you know that someone's genes are good? This is what Luo Guang is curious about. We have people in those biopharmaceutical companies. They are stealing the genes of patients or other people for analysis and research. We are just taking advantage of the situation. For example, Kran is an employee of Sanli & Company. And Luo Guang is from Umbrella Company, so he was targeted by the Apocalypse organization. By the way, the Apocalypse's insider in Umbrella Company is called researcher Greg Mueller, who is the person who performed memory surgery on Luo Guang in Wang Wei's words. Go on, Luo Guang said. Wait, aren't you interfering with the normal reproduction of humans by doing this? Kran thought that if this technology is really popularized, all parents will have to spend money to let their children win at the starting line. So are children who don't have money for adjustment born inferior and discriminated against? Wang Qianglin ignored Kellen and continued, the reason why we proposed the adjustment plan is that our organization's eugenics plan is too slow. The superiors thought it would be best to speed it up, so they used the methods of adjusting genes and in vitro culture. What about you? I was born and raised in the organization, an orphan who was picked up. Luo Guang remembered that Wang Wei also said that she was an orphan, but now it seems that it should be false. This is also the case. Wang Wei is the product of the eugenics plan. Her birth grade is S-, and her genetic grade is consistent with Luo Guang's genetic report grade. It is also because of the success of this eugenics plan and the failure of the adjustment plan that women in the Apocalypse organization have always occupied a dominant position. I have been taught since I was a child to contribute my own strength to the organization. I am not interested in your past. Just talk about the Apocalypse organization. Luo Guang couldn't stand it anymore and interrupted. Kellen only knew Wang Qianglin's own affairs now. When she was with him, she always looked at ease and basically never talked about her own affairs. But he often complained to Wang Qianglin about his work and asked for her comfort like a baby. It's no wonder that Wang Qianglin couldn't really like him for 2 years. Hearing Luo Guang's words, Wang Qianglin sighed and asked, "What do you want to know? What is the real purpose of your organization?" I said the purpose before, but it's not clear whether it is the ultimate purpose of the organization. But there was once an A-level person who used this statement. Wang Qianglin analyzed it with her brain and said, "But I once heard something that the organization did all these to cope with the upcoming great changes." But she didn't know the specific situation. What is the purpose of collecting viruses and developing new viruses? Not only the Harlan virus, Luo Guang had also encountered the Apocalypse team that seized the Eternal virus before. For the evolution of mankind, whether this is true or not, the actions of our organization are basically moving in this direction. Even if there will be a virus leak like this. Your organization is really strange. On the one hand, you say it is for the evolution and future of mankind, but on the other hand, you want to develop this virus that can destroy the world. In Luo Guang's opinion, the Apocalypse organization is too contradictory. It is impossible to use simple good and evil to determine whether this organization is good or bad. But some of the actions of this organization are indeed damaging human interests and destroying world peace. So Luo Guang did not put this Apocalypse organization on the list of bad organizations. If he encounters bad things, he will also stop it. Wang Qianglin could not answer Luo Guang's question. How could she, an assistant, know the real thoughts of the superiors? Luo Guang sighed and asked the next question, the specific location of the headquarters of your organization's branch. The headquarters is not clear. As for other branches, I think it's useless for you to go there. Our branch places are all rented, and we move to other places after use. In fact, Wang Qianglin's memory was modified by the Apocalypse organization, making her forget the specific location. What about the others? The contact information will also be changed after each mission. The only landline number is only known to the upper level. What a hassle. In order to keep it secret, actually, after this mission, Kellen, I, and the people who escaped from the institute will all undergo memory surgery to ensure that no mission content will be leaked. After that, Wang Qianglin looked at Kellen and said, in addition to the things about this mission, Kellen will also have a lot of memories modified. Let him become someone who grew up in the organization. Why is this? Everyone's memory is unique. Kellen, who has read countless comics, thinks that organizations that modify memories are not good organizations. Seeing his face ashen, Luo Guang knew that his plan was successful. Although Wang Qianglin didn't know much secrets, Luo Guang now had a general impression of the Apocalypse organization. And the formation of this impression also made Luo Guang adjust his previous decision, which was to give up letting Wang Qianglin become his spy. Even if Wang Qianglin went back, she would have to undergo the memory modification surgery, and it is very likely that physical examinations and other things would also be done. As for whether the injected T Veronica virus, base station version, can deceive the Apocalypse, Luo Guang didn't want to gamble on the possibility for the sake of safety. Although the virus is a base station version, it can leak a lot of information. Now the Holy Mother has entered the secret passage, and he is about to evacuate. After putting away the equipment and USB flash drive, Luo Guang took out the syringe and approached Wang Qianglin. Where Kellen couldn't see, he pretended to give her an injection. In fact, this was a fake move. He directly activated the virus in Wang Qianglin's body, and the eternal toxin began to form in her body. Wang Qianglin wailed in pain, and blue crystals began to appear on her skin. Don't! Kellen couldn't shout out in the end. With a tangled face, he watched Wang Qianglin silently as she turned into a blue crystal sculpture and was shattered by Luo Guang. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 332. Clan liked Wang Qianglin, so his first reaction was to stop Luo Guang, or to beg him to let his girlfriend go. But as soon as he uttered the first word from his throat, he immediately thought of the fact that he had spent 2 years of love but did not get Wang Qianglin's sincerity. He was just a tool for her to climb up from the beginning to the end. Once this thought came up, he could no longer speak. Luo Guang took back the handcuffs and shackles that he had put on Wang Qianglin before, broke the crystal powder on the ground, and took away her belongings, such as the key. Then he suppressed Clan, took back the shackles on his body, and injected the antidote to remove the T. Veronica virus, base station version, in his body. But Clan, who was immersed in Wang Qianglin's matter, did not realize that he had received another injection in his buttocks. Afterwards, he did not get up after Luo Guang left him, and his face was still tangled. Wang Qianglin had dealt him too much of a blow. I'm leaving. You can find a way to leave. Luo Guang didn't say anything to Kellen, who had lost his spirit. His name and appearance were fake now. The system of the institute was also controlled by him. Hong Huan confirmed that he would not leak the information of his operation. He was going to go around the institute and leave after confirming that nothing was leaked. Wait. Luo Guang passed Kellen and heard him calling him just after he walked to the door. He looked back at Kellen and said, "What? Do you want to avenge your girlfriend? Then I advise you not to die." "She is not my girlfriend." Kellen said this without any confidence. There was no breakup process between the two parties. He didn't know how to define Wang Qianglin's identity for a while. After all, he was not a licking dog. The other party didn't treat him as a boyfriend, but he still had to force himself on him. "That's right." Luo Guang shrugged and said, "By the way, if you are still alive, the Apocalypse organization will probably come to you, so you have to think about how to answer." Kellen shook his head and said, "I won't contact them." This seemed to tell Luo Guang that he would not tell the Apocalypse organization what happened here, but Luo Guang felt that Kellen wanted to cut off relations with the Apocalypse. "What are your plans for the future?" Since the other party has said this, he must ask a question to understand the situation. He has a hunch that the two sides will cooperate in the future. Kellen sat on the ground, clenched his fists, and said, "I will investigate the true purpose of the Apocalypse organization. If this organization is really endangering world peace, then I must fight this organization to the end." "Only you?" Luo Guang laughed. Kellen replied, "Don't you want to deal with the Apocalypse organization?" Suddenly my brain has become better. Luo Guang felt that the other party had opened up. It turned out that love can make people stupid. Seeing that the other party bit his lips tightly and did not respond to his complaints, Luo Guang did not force him and answered the question, "I used to be like you, and I met an agent of the Apocalypse organization who threw himself into his arms." "What?" Hearing the other party's words, a surprised expression appeared on Kellen's face. Luo Guang continued, "But I already have a girlfriend, so I didn't fall for it." At this point, he couldn't help but feel a little fortunate that he had just evolved not long ago, and the desire to reproduce was not so strong. Then you are lucky. Kellen did not delve into whether the other party's words were true or false, because the other party had no need to deceive him, a person with nothing. If he could not give the other party any benefits, the other party naturally had no need to lie to him or set a trap. Obviously Kellen did not know that the other party had set his sights on him as a whole. Luo Guang did not necessarily need Kellen to be his teammate, but just needed some like-minded people to fight against the Apocalypse organization. The main problem now is that the Apocalypse organization is not well known. Even if Luo Guang tells his subordinates that there is an organization called Apocalypse in the world that is secretly planning to destroy the world, it is difficult for his subordinates to take this matter seriously. Because the people in the GIMZ unit are all his subordinates, it doesn't make any difference whether they know it or not. They just need to obey orders and fight wherever they are directed. And if he tells the FBC organization, BSAA, or X organization and other forces, he doesn't have much evidence. There is no evidence in this institute that can prove the existence of the Apocalypse organization. As for human evidence, the strength of the evidence is not high. So Luo Guang can only take it slowly. The primary goal is to bring the Apocalypse organization to the surface, even if the name is a pseudonym. You or I alone can't deal with the Apocalypse organization. Here's a piece of advice for you: bring the Apocalypse organization to the surface. Luo Guang added, how can an organization that does good things hide so deeply? Cran thought about it, then nodded, stood up, and said, I understand what you mean. I will find evidence of the existence of the Apocalypse organization. Come on. Wait. Luo Guang waved and was about to leave, but was stopped by the other party. If I want to cooperate with you, how can I find you? Luo Guang had a hard time answering this question, because it would easily reveal his identity, but he quickly thought of a way and told Cran an email address. This email address has not been set up yet, and he plans to let Hong Huang get the email address when the time comes. Anyway, he had the server secretly bought by Umbrella Company, so he didn't need to rely on the various operating service providers in the world, so the format of the mailbox didn't need to follow the regulations of other service providers. Anything else, Luo Guang was about to leave, and then he went back to the Caucasus secret base, and asked Hong Huang to modify his Nokia phone and add confidentiality functions. He didn't plan to change the appearance of the phone shell. Just like the X organization's mobile phone, the first look is ordinary. Cran shook his head and watched Luo Guang leave. At noon, Amir, who returned to the tower force, immediately found Harris. Harris saw Amir and patted his arm in surprise. After confirming that his friend didn't lose any arms or legs, he said, "Where have you been? Jed is very worried about you. My walkie-talkie is out of power." Amir made an excuse and then said, "Where is Rahim? Can we contact the outside world now?" Amir, you should take care of yourself first. Do you know that a lot of things happened after you left without saying goodbye?" Harris pointed behind Amir. When Amir came back, the guard immediately contacted Harris and Jade. So Amir turned his head and immediately saw Jade's figure and tears on her face. Before Amir could say sorry, Jade rushed over and hugged him. Originally, Jade planned to beat Amir directly when they met, so that he would understand that his title of Taekwondo champion was not bought. But when she saw that Amir was still alive and not injured, she was so happy that she couldn't help but hug him directly and stuffed Harris with dog food. Although this was his own office, Harris still retreated and left space for the two of them. Harris is now more relaxed because yesterday afternoon, the BSAA people came to the tower force by helicopter to contact them and left a defensive force. He can just take this time to communicate with the BSAA about leaving Harlan City. This defense force is composed entirely of BSAA members. The GIMZ members did not stay behind. This is to let the soldiers of BSAA feel the significance of their anti-biochemical crisis. It is to protect these helpless civilians. As for the Rahim plan mentioned earlier, it can be said that it was stopped without any danger. But rather than saying that it was stopped, it is better to say that Rahim and his two best friends were not capable enough to complete this task. They died before they could accomplish their mission and failed. Rahim, who looked down on the biters, thought that he could come to the vicinity of the Les gang safely and then sneak into it. Unexpectedly, they encountered a large group of plague demons wearing Les gang clothes on the road, and the two sides met head-on. These Les gangs were the Les gangs that kindly helped Luo Guang stop the zombies behind him. They were no match for the zombies and were all infected with the Harlan virus and turned into plague demons. So the zombies Rahim and his two friends encountered were zombies that had just turned into plague demons, and they had not become weaker due to long-term exposure to the sun. It can be said that they were at the peak of the plague demon zombies. Fortunately, Jade and Masood arrived in time and successfully rescued Rahim, but his two best friends were not so lucky. Both of them were bitten by zombies. Because there were so many zombies, Jade and his friends had no chance to free the two people. The two people bitten by countless zombies suffered great pain and faced the last moment of their lives. I wonder if the two will regret following Rahim in the last moments of their lives. Rahim was taken home by Jade. Facing the parents who lost their son, no matter how many apologies he made, it would be useless, and the dead would not be resurrected. He could only stand behind his sister with his head down, silently bearing everything for his recklessness and arrogance. Originally thought that he had grown up and could take on responsibilities and share the burden with Jade, but in the end he was still that ignorant child and had not grown up at all. Seeing Rahim like this, Jed didn't scold him anymore, just asked him to reflect at home and think carefully. And now Rahim will naturally not do such stupid things again. He has been protected by his sister and for the first time understands what the price of growing up is. The two best friends were bitten to death by zombies, but in fact, these two lives should be counted on his head. Whether Rahim is willing or not, these two lives are now weighing heavily on his shoulders, making the boy really start to grow up. If there is a choice, Rahim does not want to grow up in this way, but there is no regret medicine in the world, and there is no time to go back. After that, Jed did not run around to find Amir, but stayed at home and guarded the door of Rahim's room, waiting for Harris to ask about the situation of other survivors. Fortunately, what Amir did this time, except for the zombies, did not cause him too much trouble, which can be said to be far beyond his estimation. The reason why he did not leave any information to Jed was that he was worried that the other party would come to find him. After all, the danger level of the old city is completely different from that of the civilian area. "Where did you go? Why did you leave me alone?" Jed had almost cried enough in Amir's arms, so he pushed him away and asked loudly. Amir said, "I found the source of this biochemical crisis." This sentence can make Jade calm down more than other words and listen to what he said next. But he still reminded, "You must keep the next thing secret, and don't get involved in the future." This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. Jed grabbed Amir's hand and said, "No, this time, no, you can't leave me in the future. If there is anything, we will bear it together. Jed, this matter is not." Before Amir finished speaking, Jade kissed him. After a long time, the two separated, and Jade said firmly, "We will bear it together." "Okay." Amir, who was kissed by Jade, nodded and said, "I accidentally heard the words of the couple who came before. They seemed to be going to a research institute." "Research institute? Are you saying that the disaster in Harlan City was caused by those people?" Jade knew why Amir didn't want to get involved as soon as he heard it. Amir didn't want his girlfriend to know his true identity, so he made up a story. "I don't know, but wasn't the Raccoon City incident caused by the underground Umbrella Corporation Research Institute?" Jed suddenly realized, "I understand, so are you going to tell BSAA, their people are here?" Then she told him what happened when Amir was not there. "Were we not abandoned?" Amir was a little surprised to hear this. He was also planning to use the Research Institute's affairs to get a ticket out of Harlan City for the people in the civilian area. For the woman he loved, he was willing to betray the Apocalypse organization. He didn't want to be wiped out of his memory of living with his girlfriend after this mission. He didn't want to forget every bit of being with Jade. I heard from those BSAA soldiers that it seemed that the intelligence was collected by an intelligence agent sent here by an organization called GIMZ. When Amir heard this, he inexplicably thought of a Muro ray in his mind, and saw the map Harris spread out on the table in the corner of his eyes. He knew that there were 3 forces outside the city, but he didn't know that GIMZ was also involved in this matter. Originally, he planned to tell the strongest FBC organization about the Research Institute, but now it seems that BSAA is also a good choice. The reason is that he has been paying attention to the changes in the world. He has naturally heard a little about GIMZ, the first organization to fight against the biochemical crisis, and knows that this organization is really fighting against the biochemical crisis. Although the overall strength is not strong, it now seems that this organization is not as simple as it seems. From the fact that GIMZ told BSAA about the information, the two should be in a cooperative relationship. This also proves to some extent that BSAA is also an organization dedicated to fighting against biochemicals. In terms of organizational strength and anti-biochemical determination, Amir chose the latter, that is, BSAA. Without further ado, he said to Jed, since the people of BSAA are here, let's go to them for help. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Miao. Chapter 333. After walking around the institute and confirming that no one was left behind, Luo Guang left the institute alone through the secret passage. The journey was not short and he had to take the underground train inside. Judging from the longitude and latitude displayed on the watch and the surrounding environment, he had already arrived outside Harlan City. Luo Guang looked around and soon found Jasmine's trace. And the 2 good researchers seemed to have woken up. The footprints of the 3 walked side by side. It was probably because Jasmine successfully persuaded the 2 researchers. He confirmed whether he could sense Jasmine's position in his mind now. Perhaps because he was carrying 2 burdens, the other party was not far away from him. To his surprise, some night demons also appeared in his mind, heading towards Harlan City. It seemed that the sensing control distance had become farther. So Luo Guang was not anxious to follow the Virgin Mary. There was no signal blockade here, so he took out his Nokia phone and planned to tell Samus the location of the institute. After hearing what Luo Guang said, Samus replied, "Boss Wu, someone has told us about the Underground Research Institute in Harlan." Surprised, Luo Guang asked, "Oh? Who told you?" It was Amir's man. He was from the Tower Force. He found that the 2 people who came to his base before were suspicious, so he followed them and finally found the existence of the Research Institute. Samus briefly explained the situation. Luo Guang wrote down Amir's name, and then he planned to contact him to confirm his identity. However, he also had information that Amir did not mention, such as the secret passage and the machine gun in the Research Institute, so he told Samus these 2 pieces of information. Amir did not say these to avoid being associated with the Apocalypse organization. After this incident, he planned to live in a quiet place with Jet incognito. I understand. I will tell Jill. But I have a question. Did your intelligence agent go into the Research Institute to investigate? No, he actually followed those 2 people with problems to the Research Institute, so he overheard some intelligence. What a coincidence, Samus was a little unconvinced. If that was true, she would have to sympathize with those 2 people. Luo Guang answered naturally, originally, my intelligence agent thought that it was the virus created by the Void Church, so he sneaked into the old city early. The entrance to the Research Institute is near the Harlan Temple. Samus understood what Luo Guang meant by this. That's right, so when those 2 came over, they were discovered by the intelligence agent Luo Guang did not describe more detailed details. First, he was not the real person, and second, sometimes details do not mean truth. Ah, there is one more thing. Luo Guang suddenly slapped his head and remembered something. He forgot to clean up the problem left by the Virgin Jasmine in the Void Church, which means that the Virgin's night demon army is still on standby in the darkness below the temple. Luo Guang quickly told Samus about the matter, and also told him about the contents of the Void Church's investigation, including the blue fog. The information provided by her boss this time was too detailed. Even the method of making blue mist was known, which made Samus ask, has the intelligence agent infiltrated the Void Church now? Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to know so many secrets of the Void Church. She continued, if possible, it would be best to cooperate with the outside to blow up most of the corridors, and then solve the problem of those night demons blocking the narrow corridors in the temple. As for protecting cultural relics, this is not a problem that Samus should consider. She only needs to consider the safety of her men's lives. If the Turkish side disagrees, then they can send someone to do it themselves. Wait, he just sent a message and has evacuated. Luo Guang paused and said. He had other things to do next, such as covering up Jasmine's tracks, but he didn't have time to go back again, so he pretended to have just received the information. That's a pity Samus didn't ask further. He couldn't ask the other party if he could let the intelligence agent go back to Harlan City to take risks again. Night Demon has a weakness to ultraviolet light. What's the situation with the ultraviolet light in FBC? Is BSAA ready? Luo Guang asked these questions because he was concerned about Jill's situation. He was not worried about Jill's safety, but worried that too many soldiers in BSAA would die, and Jill would be depressed or suffer from PTSD like Chris in the later stages of the game. Although Jill did not have a system in her body, because of her own reasons, she had the former Shinra virus that she had transmitted to her. Her physical fitness and other aspects were basically at the limit of human beings, and she was always young. It was mainly because of her physical characteristics, a natural immunity to biochemical viruses, that prevented the effect of the virus in her body from breaking through the human limit. But even so, with the cooperation of guns, Night Demon was not her opponent. Samus answered Luo Guang's question and said, there is no news from FBC yet, but the ultraviolet light is not a difficult thing to deal with. It's mainly a problem with the production line. We are temporarily using other lights that can emit ultraviolet light instead. But Jill said that a mysterious country has packed a batch of ultraviolet tactical flashlights and prepared to transport them by plane. Don't attack the Night Demon's lair and the research institute without full confidence. The believers of the Void cult have all inhaled the blue mist, so be sure to isolate them, Luo Guang warned. Received, but I have another plan for the research institute. This chapter is not finished yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Well, you can do it as you see fit. Remember to communicate with the BSAA. Luo Guang had told Samus about the things to pay attention to in this mission. While solving the problem, save the lives of his men. This is what Luo Guang told him. Of course. By the way, the FBC troops were attacked by the Night Demons at the Harlan Hotel last night and were wiped out. Samus's news aroused Luo Guang's interest, and he quickly asked for details. Yesterday afternoon, the FBC troops on the rooftop of the Harlan Hotel were ready to go, and the ultraviolet tactical flashlights airlifted in had been delivered to the front-line soldiers and installed on the Picatinny rails on the sides of their assault rifles. The arrival of this ultraviolet tactical flashlight was not told to the BSAA. According to the person in charge of the FBC, they did not have enough for themselves and could not share it with others. If they told others about it and they asked for it, it would only lead to conflicts between the two sides. Captain Jones stood in front of the soldiers. He did not change his officer uniform because he did not plan to lead the team to carry out the mission. Now he was doing a pre-war mobilization, which was actually to bid farewell to the soldiers who were about to go on the road. The target of this mission is the Night Devil's nest in the middle of the hotel. According to the intelligence obtained by the cameras on the first batch of soldiers after they were captured the morning before yesterday, the FBC has confirmed the approximate location of the Night Devil's nest. After the FBC discovered the existence of the Night Devil, it sent several more troops to carry out the mission and used unmanned vehicles for reconnaissance. This unmanned vehicle is not a high-tech product. It is made of a toy car and a camera tied with tape. Except for the Night Demon, other zombies will not actively attack the unmanned vehicle. It is good for those soldiers to confirm the arrival of the Night Demon in advance, but it is a bit of a waste of toy cars and cameras. So in the next few battles, the overall survival rate of the FBC troops increased a lot. Jones continued, "It is daytime now, but because of the strange flesh lichen in the hotel, the windows cannot let in the sun, and the lights are damaged, so the interior of the hotel is dark." Flesh lichen is a name proposed by the researchers of the FBC Institute using the Blood Plague Virus Research Institute. This kind of flesh-like stuff is collectively called meat lichen. Although it has become suitable for the survival of those night demons, in an emergency, you can go to those windows, break the blockade of the lichen, and let the sun shine in, which may save your life. Yes, the soldiers responded loudly, full of gratitude to their superiors who care about them. It was a very simple way to control the enemy. Captain Jones boosted the morale a little, reiterated the mission objectives, and said, "The mission of Team A and Team B is to capture a night demon. The mission of Team C, D, and E is to clean up the night demons inside the hotel. The two teams with different missions will set out in two directions, and the latter team will also take on the task of attracting the enemy's main force." In order to capture the night demon, FBC also prepared special nets and special tranquilizer guns. The problem is that these two things have not been tested in actual combat, so the mission of team of this time also means testing equipment. On the other side, the night demons were also prepared under the leadership of their leader. Their leader is a perception night demon evolved from an ordinary night demon. The appearance and evolution of the flesh lichen also contributed to it. The continuous confrontation between the two sides during the day and night in the past 2 days is to prepare for today. The previous confrontation was just a test. Today, the night demons will eliminate all the enemies who invaded their territory and slaughtered their tribe. That's right. The civilization level of the night demons in Harlan Hotel has reached the primitive tribal stage. The members have already had a sense of tribal identity, and they have learned to use some simple tools to make human leather clothes for themselves. This clothing has only one function, which is to prevent ultraviolet rays that can endanger their lives. The FBC team responsible for clearing the zombies and the night demons' nest set off first. This time, in order to attract the enemy, the FBC team deliberately brought a loudspeaker, and when they came to the place where the enemy might be, they bombarded with death rock. Tear the enemy's head to pieces and let them explode on the spot. Boom. Boom. After the song ended, the soldier in charge replaced the loudspeaker with reluctance and picked up the shotgun. After the sound of the music disappeared, the sound of knocking on the door reached the ears of the soldiers. The sound was a bit sparse, indicating that there were not many zombies on this floor. The image sent back by the unmanned vehicle that set out to explore the way under the cover of the sound also showed that there was no ambush of night demons in the stairwell, and only a few zombies in the public area were coming towards them. After confirming the enemy's position and dealing with the zombies, the FBC members planned to deal with the zombies knocking on the door. With the advantage of information asymmetry, the FBC soldiers were naturally happy and relaxed because the number of enemies was small and there were no night demons. The FBC troops cleared all the way to the middle position, which was a good position, but for those zombies. The door marked with X by the FBC troops at the back was quietly opened by the plague demon from the inside, and the guest room was full of plague demons and night walkers. These zombies did not rush out in a rush, as if they had rehearsed, rushing out of the room one by one, attacking the FBC troops, making sure they would not block the door. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. The FBC soldiers who had been paying attention to the rear directly used gunshots to warn other teammates that there were enemies in the rear. These zombies were to block the enemy's retreat. At this time, the same situation occurred in the guest room in front of the troops, and the main purpose of this group of zombies was to distract the attention of the FBC troops. When the FBC troops focused their attention and guns on the zombies in front and behind, the guest room doors that were tightly closed and crossed on both sides were also opened from the inside by zombies. These zombies were the killer weapon arranged by the Night Demon leader. The zombies' plan was successful, and the entire FBC army was surrounded by zombies. When the zombies got close to humans, the advantage of guns was basically lost, and even the most elite teams would fall into chaos in this situation. It had nothing to do with training and personal ability, the whole battle had become a mess. Jones, who was watching the battle on the rooftop, did not issue the order to retreat immediately. The situation soon exceeded his expectations. Now even if he shouted to retreat in the communication channel, it would be of little use. Only using the ambush team composed of plague demons and night walkers, this time the FBC troops were successfully wiped out, which was the biggest loss since the FBC carried out the Harlan mission. Seeing all the soldiers dead and falling to the ground, Jones punched the innocent table, and his facial muscles twitched slightly because of anger. He knew that he was fooled by the zombies. This was simply a great shame. How could Jones bear the label of the first human being fooled by zombies forever? He immediately picked up the intercom in anger and was about to send all the soldiers to wipe out those hateful ambush zombies, but was stopped in time by his adjutant. Because these soldiers were the troops protecting the temporary camp on the rooftop, they could not be transferred at will. Finally, Jones took a few deep breaths and contacted the FBC general manager of the camp outside the city to report the matter. He dared not hide it from his superiors. "Jones, you know that although we have sent a large force, we can't waste so many people." The chief was very disappointed with Jones's performance and continued, "The BSAA is ready to rescue civilians in the civilian area. The work so far has been well received by the NATO investigation team and the international investigation team that arrived this morning. Sir, this is unfair. Our mission is more difficult than theirs. Lieutenant Colonel, I sent you to carry out the mission, not to listen to your complaints. If you want people, I will give you manpower. If you want equipment, I will prepare it for you." Obviously, the person in charge was very dissatisfied with Jones' answer. The FBC is much stronger than the BSAA, so why did it perform so badly? Jones' answer was more like shirking his responsibility. Now, he finally understood why his boss Morgan carried out the plan to slander the BSAA, because he found that although the FBC was very strong on paper, the people in charge of the execution did not have much experience. For example, just because Jones was a lieutenant colonel before joining FBC, he can serve as a middle-level officer in the newly formed team, while the grassroots officers are from the Red Claws. This leads to limited role played by experienced people, and the middle-level officers in charge of front-line command apply the experience of security warfare to anti-biochemical operations. In fact, Morgan also knows the current situation, and he is slowly correcting the mistakes in organizational ability. Jones is a person sent by the traditional military. In fact, he is also a capable and accomplished person, but his thinking has become a bit rigid. The general manager continued, "You now recall all the teams and defend the rooftop. We will send reinforcements here. You temporarily stop the task of capturing the Night Demon. There are still many soldiers in the FBC camp." After the general manager arranged Jones's affairs, he ordered his assistant to select soldiers to go to the rooftop for support. Next, he has other things to do, such as forming a team, studying to go to the old city to investigate the void cult, etc. But that night, a large group of night demons led their zombies to attack the temporary camp on the rooftop. A new type of zombie that could self-destruct directly blew up the F.B.C's defense line. The zombies rushed in and cleaned up the entire camp, leaving no one alive. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 334. After the Harlan Hotel tragedy, the Harlan head of the FBC naturally did not dare to conceal the incident. He immediately reported it to Morgan along with the video recorded by the camera on the rooftop of the hotel at that time. Jones actually did not miss anything in terms of defense in general. It was expected that the night demon would climb up from the outer wall of the hotel. It was just that the night demon's hard power broke through the defense line. Morgan did not vent his anger in front of his men, but he had a dark face throughout the video conversation, which made the head dare not breathe. After listening to what the head said and watching several video clips, Morgan issued the latest order. Let the head take the bodies of the dead on the rooftop of the hotel back and give an explanation to the families of the fallen soldiers. To be honest, the risks of this matter are much greater than the benefits, but the most important thing now is the reputation of the FBC. If this kind of thing is not done well, what will other living soldiers think? Recently, there have been many failures. Morgan does not want a large-scale retirement of soldiers in the FBC. On the contrary, BSAA can be said to be doing better and better. The survivors who were successfully rescued from the tower forces were photographed by the press team arranged by O'Brien when they got off the helicopter. In fact, O'Brien did not intend to do this at the beginning. It was Sams who contacted O'Brien and persuaded him. It's a very simple truth. If you don't occupy the high ground of public opinion, others will occupy it. Then no one will hear you when you want to speak out. So O'Brien, who was persuaded, immediately used his connections to arrange reporters to come. Not only reporters, but also people from the NATO investigation team and the international investigation team were invited to come and comfort the survivors. It was a show of politics. Those politicians took pictures, showed themselves, and were happy to get political achievements. This investigation team is not all such politicians. There are also capable people who can distinguish whether the survivors rescued by BSAA are real or fake. So O'Brien's move is to endorse these survivors, to prevent people with ulterior motives from attacking BSAA for fraud, and to please those powerful people. It can be said that he kills two birds with one stone. He knew a lot of methods, but he was a more upright person, so he would not take the initiative to use them under normal circumstances. After Sams and Luo Guang finished their phone call, the condolence activities for the survivors also ended. Then she called Amir, Jed, and the main leaders of the NATO investigation team and the international investigation team to hold a meeting. The reason why the NATO investigation team and the international investigation team were brought in was because this matter was of great importance. Jill was not here because she felt that it was better to go out and rescue other survivors than to attend such a meeting. As for the official leader of Turkey, he was also in the NATO investigation team, so Sams did not go to find Süleyman, the head of the Turkish military. Süleyman and the FBC had something hidden from them, it was just a courtesy. After hearing Amir's description, everyone understood why Sams wanted to find them, because this showed that the origin of the biochemical crisis in Harlan was not as the FBC had reported before. Everyone present at the FBC report knew what was going on, but they were afraid of comparison. Compared with the BSAA, the F.B.C's performance in this operation was indeed unsatisfactory. So officials sent by various countries began to think about whether to increase their support for the BSAA organization. Captain Sams, I understand that there are other behind-the-scenes people behind this matter, so what are you going to do next? Asked the person in charge on the Turkish side. The person on the lighthouse country nodded secretly. He also wanted to know this question and was also making his own calculations in his mind. It's very simple. Although our BSAA is an anti-biochemical organization under the United Nations, for the sake of fairness or safety, we hope that the United Nations will form a joint force to carry out military operations against this institute. Sams has already discussed this matter with Jill, and Jill also understands her idea and has fully entrusted Sams to do it. Originally, Jill wanted BSAA to directly eliminate the virus in Harlan City from the source. But when Samus persuaded him, he mentioned that this was to avoid corruption within BSAA, and also to clear himself from the issue of monopolizing the virus. The more people involved, the easier it is to supervise each other. Hearing Samus's answer, representatives from various countries couldn't help but discuss. Captain Samus, are the sources of the automatic machine guns and secret passages you added before true? Another person raised his hand to ask a question. He suspected that BSAA had already sent people into the institute, but they wanted to find someone to share the losses because of the huge losses. It was the intelligence sent by the intelligence officer who cooperated with the GIMZ unit. After Samus said this, the relationship between the intelligence officer and GIMZ was further distanced. Why did the people from the GIMZ unit come here? Upon hearing this, someone immediately raised a question. Because BSAA has reached a cooperation agreement with GIMZ Force. Although GIMZ Force is not as powerful as other official organizations, it has the most extensive experience in combating biohazards in the world today. As soon as Samus finished speaking, many people nodded in agreement. The previous record was better than that of the Red Claws, but since the Umbrella Corporation closed down, a large number of small-scale biochemical crises have occurred, and the GIMZ mercenary team has shown its cost-effectiveness at this time. This chapter is not over yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. The people sent by the governments of various countries are not stupid, and they are naturally well prepared. Because people from other countries are also there, the people sent can't embarrass their own country, right? The people of the lighthouse country nodded. Perhaps the performance gap between FBC and BSAA in this mission is so big because there is no professional team support like GIMZ. And Samus in front of him is the former commander of the Red Claws, and he is an authority against biochemicals. Anything else you need to ask? After Samus finished speaking, he heard someone going out to make a phone call, obviously to contact the country and prepare to summon people to come together to attack the Harlan City Underground Research Institute. The head of the Maple Leaf Nation raised his hand and asked, "Our country is far away and cannot send people for the time being, so can we directly use NATO troops?" Another NATO member country, the Lighthouse Nation, echoed, "That's right, otherwise by the time we gather the team, the people in the institute will have already run away." How could Samus not know what the other party was thinking? He said, "With such a serious biochemical crisis in Harlan City, the people in the institute would have run away long ago. If they didn't run away, as long as we don't alert the enemy won't run away either. We all know the specific location of the institute, and countries that are closer can always leave people from other countries and go to the institute to steal information." Some people also saw what the Lighthouse Nation wanted to do, and immediately brought the matter to the table. Soon, this matter was no longer divided into factions according to the distance of the country. The Lighthouse Nation led one faction, other countries led another faction, and some countries expressed neutrality. Looking at the quarreling people, Amir felt uncomfortable. Jed saw it and patted Amir's hand. Samus did not stop those people from making noise, and said to Amir, "Now you understand why I asked you not to tell the location before. In fact, this is equivalent to giving up the power to control the situation." But Amir has his own ideas, so when he knew about Samus's arrangement, he did not listen to the other party's arrangement and exposed the location of the institute. He originally planned to let more national forces investigate the institute, and then gather the power of various countries in the world to dig out the Apocalypse organization. But he didn't expect that before it started, the countries quarreled because of interests. Because the other party was not his subordinate, but just a survivor, Samus did not force the other party to follow his requirements. Amir can contact other forces at any time to tell the location of the Institute. It is not the lack of information that is worrying, but the inequality. Instead of worrying that Amir only told the intelligence to a few powerful countries, it is better to tell the news to everyone in her sight. Sorry, Amir knew that he had taken things for granted and caused the current situation, so he asked, "Captain Sams, don't you need to stop them?" Looking at the quarreling people, Sams looked at them coldly and said, "Don't worry, they can always coordinate and discuss a plan. These Z guys are only useful for this." Luo Guang, who temporarily left the situation in Harran City alone, soon arrived at a town. Under the enthusiastic introduction of the locals, he came to a local restaurant and ate a local delicacy called Iskander kebab. This kebab is made of cooked lamb or beef chunks and grilled skewers, and then eaten with yogurt. It doesn't taste like lamb, and the taste is a bit special, but it's good overall. And Jasmine is now settled in this town, and is being blocked in the alley by several gangsters, preparing to rob and make a fortune. Unlike Luo Guang, the Virgin Mary is now worried about having no money to rely on, and many things have become troublesome, and someone is sending money to her door. After being beaten, the thugs who were huddled together in the corner watched the Virgin Mary break their daggers and water pipes with her bare hands. They were trembling and begging for mercy. Jasmine was not a bloodthirsty person. The Harlan virus in her body had been mixed with Luo Guang's Shinra virus, which had largely solved the bloodthirsty nature of the Harlan virus. After revenge and venting in the Institute, her mental state returned to normal and she was not so neurotic. She then communicated with these thugs very kindly and did not send them to the police station afterwards. In any case, her current situation was not suitable for dealing with the police, so she went to the local gang's lair above these thugs. For safety reasons, the two researchers did not follow her to rob the gang, but when Jasmine came back, the two researchers in the hotel did not run away. Dr. Imran Zir and Dr. Alan Camden, the two researchers did not run away in order to cure Jasmine. The two who were originally afraid of the Virgin who slaughtered the Institute, after learning about the Virgin's experience and current appearance, they realized that Jasmine had the right to take revenge on the Institute. Although the two of them did not participate in it, they still felt that they owed Jasmine. This was due to the personalities of the two people, but the words used by Jasmine in her conversation with the two people also played a big role. It can be said that she is not the leader of the Void cult for nothing, and her eloquence is indeed amazing. As for whether Jasmine can turn back into a human, she does not have much expectation. The greater the expectation, the greater the disappointment. It is still unknown whether there are enough equipment or funds in the place they are going to, so it is not good to have too much expectation. After Luo Guang replenished his energy and satisfied his appetite, he prepared to buy a second-hand car. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. Jasmine and the two researchers did not have any documents on them. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, it is most convenient to drive by yourself. So he planned to prepare some necessary things for the Virgin Mary and the others. It is called a test, but you can't really let Jasmine walk such a long way with two helpless researchers with bare hands. That is not a test, it is a challenge. After Luo Guang waited for Jasmine to return to the hotel, he went up and knocked on the door. Jasmine, who had just robbed the gang's lair, was shocked, and the two researchers hid directly, thinking that the gang was seeking revenge. Luo Guang, who didn't know what the other party had done before, only transmitted the message to Jasmine's brain after knocking on the door. Jasmine breathed a sigh of relief and got up to open the door. Luo Guang walked in and took a glance, and asked, "Are these two the researchers you mentioned before?" "Yes," Jasmine said, and introduced the two to Luo Guang. This is Amuro Ray, and the place we are going to is his territory. Here are the car keys for you. The white pickup truck parked on the street. Luo Guang also mentioned the license plate. Seeing a large bundle of banknotes exposed in the big bag on the bed, Luo Guang reached for his wallet and took it out again, and asked, "Two doctors, do you need any special equipment for your experiments?" The research institute in the Caucasus secret base is actually fully equipped, but just in case the other party needs some special equipment. If they purchase it early, the two researchers can also start working on the antidote for the Harlan virus as soon as possible. "I am also a researcher," Jasmine said dissatisfiedly as she watched Luo Guang record the equipment proposed by the two doctors of Imran. Yes, Jasmine, what about you?" Luo Guang did not argue, and then recorded what Jasmine mentioned. After doing these things, he asked, "It is said that the research institute over at FBC has developed an inhibitor of the Harlan virus, which can greatly slow down the mutation rate. Do you need to study this inhibitor?" "Inhibitors are not difficult to study, we also have them in our institute, but the antidote is the difficulty." Perhaps because he felt that Luo Guang was not a professional scientific researcher, Dr. Allen simply explained, "Let's put it this way, developing an antidote for the Harlan virus is equivalent to finding an antidote for the rabies virus. The rabies virus vaccine is now available, but the treatment drug has not been developed," Imran added. Luo Guang thought about this and said, "On the other hand, if rabies is solved, can the Harlan virus also be solved? My system can help me in this regard, and combined with the ability of the virus in my body, I may really be able to create a targeted special drug specifically for the Harlan virus. However, in this case, the antidote will be difficult to mass produce." Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 335. Morgan hung up the video call with the person in charge, leaned back in his chair, and exhaled. At first, he might have the urge to clear the table because of anger. But as time went on, he gradually suppressed his anger when arranging the next course of action for the FBC troops in Harlan City. Although the FBC would not be defeated by such a small setback, the continuous failures would disappoint those sponsors, and then he would be easily impeached because of distrust. This was absolutely intolerable for Morgan, so no matter what, he would let the FBC make some achievements next. Although those night demons wiped out the FBC troops on the rooftop of the Harlan Hotel, he did not think that the FBC had no advantage against the zombies such as the night demons. It was easy to really annihilate the night demons, but the question was how much it would cost. For example, directly blow up the entire Harlan Hotel so that these night demons could not hide. But to do this, the first thing to do is to convince the Turkish government. The Harran Hotel and Stadium, which cost a lot of manpower, material resources, and funds to build, are now the landmark buildings of Harran City. If they are blown up, the cost will be equivalent to the maintenance cost of FBC for more than half a year. Therefore, the Turkish government banned FBC from using various high-powered weapons in Harran City at the beginning, let alone setting fires and explosions. Not all countries are as rich as the Lighthouse country, and they use high-powered weapons to raze their cities to the ground at any time. Turkey also plans to immigrate here after solving this incident and redevelop Harran City. The night demon of the Harran Hotel cannot be solved by others now. If BSAA really completes the task well, it will cause a fatal blow to the reputation of FBC. So Morgan's order to the person in charge this time is to succeed but not fail. He picked up the phone and contacted the military of the Lighthouse country, intending to find out when the GIMZ Echo team that stole the virus would hand over to the military, so that he could arrange for reporters to go there. "We have arranged for people to infiltrate the international investigation team, and the handover will probably take place today." "Can I know the specific time?" Morgan asked. The other party did not answer the question, but told Morgan a name, saying, "Let your people keep an eye on this person." This made things more complicated. He couldn't let the reporter keep an eye on the person, right? The other party's contact person was not a fool, but since the other party didn't know the exact time, there was nothing he could do. After hanging up the phone, Morgan made another call to a reporter he contacted with a fake identity. This reporter was the kind of person who liked to make big news. As for whether the news was true or false, he didn't care, and that was why he was chosen by Morgan. The only problem was that because of his bad reputation, this person was not invited to join the investigation team, let alone allowed to enter the BasedonaMovie camp. After telling the reporter the name and appearance of the contact, Morgan continued, "It's up to you whether we can make a big news next. Don't worry. By the way, what do you think of the news title The Great Scam of the GIMZ Force?" The reporter licked his lips, as if he was sure of it. "Whatever you want. I only look at the results." "Really?" The reporter smiled and continued, "By the way, are you interested in buying a piece of intelligence? It's the big news that BasedonaMovie has just released." Although this person didn't know Morgan's true identity, his intuition told him that the other party would be interested in this intelligence. How much? As long as it was useful intelligence, Morgan would not be stingy with money. $50,000, deposited into the account I mentioned before. Morgan answered the other party directly with action. "Thank you for your concern. The intelligence content is that BasedonaMovie has discovered a research institute under Harlan City, and invited various countries to form a joint force to participate in the plan to attack the research institute." The reporter told the other party what he had just heard. Although the representatives of various countries have not yet reached a conclusion, it does not prevent him from selling it again later and making more money. Morgan was very surprised when he received the news, but he did not show it. He asked calmly, "Have you entered the BasedonaMovie camp?" For this reporter, the client did not express dissatisfaction with the price of the intelligence, which means that the other party actually thinks that his intelligence is worth the money. He replied, "It's easier than I thought. I easily deceived the guards with fake documents, so you don't have to worry about me not being able to take pictures of the other party's transaction evidence. One more thing, when you take pictures of the evidence, call other reporters, even people from the investigation teams of various countries. Hey, this is different from what I said originally. I don't want to share big news with others." The reporter's tone was full of reluctance. "How much?" In Morgan's view, it's just a matter of money. "I like clients like you, who are generous and easy to talk to. I'll just double the amount." Okay, Morgan didn't hesitate much. The more popular BasedonaMovie and GIMZ were, the more valuable they were to attack. The reporter, who didn't know how powerful the other party was, immediately replied happily, "I will get it done for you. But my identity is fake. If anything happens, I'll have to trouble you to get me out. Don't worry, I can't let you betray me." Morgan saw that the other party was not a person who would keep secrets, and it would be easy for him to tell others about the transaction after being caught. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. Just your words, I will go find the mission target first. Not only that, he also planned to secretly find other reporters to spread this gossip. Although his client asked him to find people from the international investigation team, it was not easy for him to talk to those people. Therefore, it was best to take the route of reporters from the investigation team. He did not believe that those reporters would not report the matter to their superiors. However, this matter had to be done in a hurry. In the conference room, the noise became smaller and smaller, and the people on both sides seemed to begin to calm down and gradually found a balance point between the two sides. Finally, the representative of the lighthouse country told Sams the result of the discussion. It was not because BasedonaMovie was the source of the intelligence, but because BasedonaMovie represented the United Nations, so these people would inform Sams. Of course, there was another reason besides this, and this reason will be mentioned later. In order to solve the problem of the institute as soon as possible, they set a deadline. Within 16 hours, that is, until 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, this is the time for the troops of various countries to gather, and no one will be allowed to wait after the deadline. It seems that there is plenty of time, but there are not many countries that can quickly deploy troops, and those weak countries are excluded. Because this incident happened in Turkey, countries have to pay a price to get the right of passage. And the Turkish government is familiar with this matter, and immediately sat on the chair with a smile, waiting for customers to come. Turkey naturally dare not ask for too much from powerful countries such as the Lighthouse country and the Bear country, but it will charge well for countries such as Italy and Poland. Although everyone is not used to the face of the native chicken, they did not get angry because of it. From another perspective, Turkey suffered heavy losses in the Harran incident this time, and this fee cannot make up for it. Moreover, this matter is not really necessary to participate. Many countries may not be able to develop even if they get any information. Even if it is developed, it may not be kept. The weak countries understand the principle of being guilty of holding a treasure best. Because the research institute is an indoor battle, the overall number of people cannot be too large. But the research institute is generally large anyway, so there is no need for all people to squeeze into the same team. Therefore, the number of participants this time is scheduled to be 200, divided into 2 teams. Another advantage of dividing into 2 teams is that it solves the problem of command. One faction is responsible for the command of one team, but in order to supervise each other, the team members are from both factions. After the representative of the Lighthouse country finished talking about the results of their negotiations, he continued, "In addition, we hope that BSAA can send a few instructors to assist us. This is another reason for notifying SAMUs of the conclusion, in order to attract BSAA to join the researcher strategy team." Okay, but our instructors have the right to deny orders. No, how can there be 2 voices in a team? The representative of the Lighthouse country immediately objected. SAMUs replied, "In this case, we BSAA will take a step back, and the instructor has the right not to execute the order. This representative only knows how to control the command power, but he doesn't understand other things. He doesn't know what trouble a person who can disobey orders will cause. However, BSAA will not deliberately do such things that affect its reputation. And if the commander is broad-minded and knows how to listen to opinions, both sides will naturally be at peace. Everything is for the safety of BSAA members, not to cooperate with those people to execute some incorrect instructions and give up their lives." Everyone continued to discuss the next plan, and at the same time, BSAA also took out spare tents to build barracks for these investigation team members to live temporarily. This is a serious matter, and they plan to live directly in FBC. It just so happens that the security personnel of their investigation team can also assist BSAA in defending the camp. After temporarily negotiating everything, SAMUs was about to go back to his room to rest. Stretching, she saw the leader of the Echo Squad, Crisp, walking towards her. "Okay, there's still work to do now, so it seems I won't have to sleep tonight." At 2:30 in the morning, in the woods outside the BSAA camp, Crisp stood silently under the shade of a tree with an incubator in his hand, glancing at his non-reflective watch. Sorry for the wait, the other party was also in the shadows, and his appearance could not be seen clearly. "No hurry, why is your voice a little hoarse?" There was a rustling sound around, like the friction sound of the wind blowing the bushes. "It's just a cold, where are the things? You haven't been followed?" "Of course not." The other party's tone was a little anxious. Crisp sneered, patted the incubator, and said, "The goods you want are here." As soon as the voice fell, the surrounding lights lit up. Many people appeared from the surroundings, including people from NATO and the International Investigation Team. Only then did Crisp see the other person's appearance clearly. It was a person he had never seen before. He was holding a camera in his hand, recording what was happening. "Mr. Crisp, can you let us see what's in the incubator?" The representative of the lighthouse country walked out from the crowd with a gloomy face. He knew about the military plan, but there were people from other countries around him, so he couldn't save Crisp. And in order to clear himself from the relationship, he had to take the initiative to step forward. The people around him, including Jill and other BSAA, were looking at Crisp in surprise. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. Crisp's expression was naturally calm, and he didn't struggle. He just put the incubator carefully on the ground. The people around him immediately shone the flashlight on the incubator. Under the crowd's onlookers, he slowly opened the incubator and revealed the true appearance of the things inside, 10 packs of bear biscuits. Everyone was silent when they saw the things inside. The cold wind blew through the woods, and several officials couldn't help but sneeze or rub their arms with their hands. "These are authentic Lighthouse Country products, Turkey can't buy them," Crisp said seriously. But the people around him were even more silent, and the atmosphere became even more awkward. The reporter, pretending to be the contact person, looked at the package of bear biscuits in the box in surprise. The cartoon bear with a cute smile on it seemed to be mocking him. "This is impossible," the reporter pointed at the things in the incubator and shouted loudly. The representative of the lighthouse country came back to his senses, breathed a sigh of relief, glared at the reporter, walked up to him and asked, "Is this what you said about catching people with evidence?" Jill also said, "I think you should give us an explanation. Who asked you to frame us?" In order to make the officials and reporters present believe what he said, the reporter could say this in advance. In order to catch people with evidence, those people were willing to cooperate. After all, this matter was not a trivial matter. But in the end, the contraband, the reporter said, was bear biscuits, and now the anger of blowing cold wind in the middle of the night came up. Everyone glared at him, and the reporter explained loudly, "No. We caught the contact person, didn't he also say it was contraband? This is a conspiracy. Who are you? I'm targeting you. And these bear biscuits are indeed contraband. Our troops are not allowed to eat such non-nutritious snacks. These things don't need to be stored in an incubator." The reporter suspected that the box was originally filled with zombie blood with the Harlan virus. Crisp said innocently, "There is no ice in this incubator, and it is not opened, so it can't keep warm. It is just an ordinary container now." After the two sides asked and answered, everyone understood. In any case, they could only be innocent if they didn't catch the evidence. Although the representative of the lighthouse country didn't know what happened in the middle, he finally breathed a sigh of relief and said to Jill, "I'll leave this reporter to you. I will send someone to investigate together to confirm who is behind this." The reporter originally planned not to ask the BSAA people to come, but the investigation team insisted on doing so. Jill said, "Haha. Representative, why don't you handle this matter? I think you should be able to give us a satisfactory answer." Obviously, she was implying that she knew who was behind the scenes, and that it was related to the Lighthouse Nation. The Lighthouse Nation representative was about to agree, when he heard the representative of the Bear Nation say, "We also want to join the investigation. This matter is a provocation to the BSAA, that is, a provocation to all members of our United Nation." The representative of the Bear Nation was a rough but delicate person. He saw the strangeness in it and wanted to see if he could profit from it. In fact, Crisp was a member of GIMZ, and it had nothing to do with the United Nation. But GIMZ was a mercenary organization after all, so it was the best choice to solve this matter with the support of the BSAA, so Crisp did not speak. It's not realistic for everyone to participate in the investigation, so why not let the BSAA and the 5 permanent members of the UN investigate together? Gil showed that he was helpless to the representative of the Lighthouse Nation. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Miao. Chapter 336. Crisp returned to the BSAA camp empty-handed. The incubator and the bear biscuits he had taken out were confiscated to confirm the authenticity of the contents. On the surface, it looked normal, but in case the bag was not filled with biscuits, a detailed inspection was still required. Crisp was also very cooperative, but he asked the inspectors to remember to pack the bear biscuits in a box and send them back to BSAA after the inspection. He pushed the door and entered the room. The rest of the GIMZ team was inside, including Samu's. "Crisp, you did a great job in this incident." Samu's first words to Crisp, who came in, were praise. "Does BSAA, or us, know who is behind this?" Jill in the woods was actually cooperating with GIMZ to act, and Samu's had already revealed the details to her. Crisp noticed that Jill's expression was very calm after the initial surprise. Even if she said she wanted to investigate, it was very calm. "FBC," Samu's answered without hesitation. "Is it really them?" Crisp was not surprised and said, "I just thought the order from my superiors was very strange, so I kept it in mind." The FBC and the military forces of the Lighthouse Nation have a very close relationship. There is no reason why the military cannot get the Harlan virus, unless the FBC deliberately blocks the sharing of the Harlan virus. And there are many ways for the Lighthouse Nation to get the Harlan virus, such as there are people from the Lighthouse Nation in the BSAA Research Institute. At the very least, the Research Institute in Turkey must have the Harlan virus. There are so many ways and channels, but the Lighthouse Nation military chose its own Echo Squad to do it. It's too strange and too dangerous. They are not worth being targeted, so the enemy's target is very obvious, either GIMZ or BSAA. Or the other party wants to kill two birds with one stone. Although it was considered that other forces did something bad, there were not many forces that could affect the Lighthouse National Military, and FBC was one of them, so Crisp didn't feel strange when he heard Samu's answer. "Let's not talk about F.B.C.'s matter. What should we do, Captain?" Sienna interrupted. She was also fooled, and she didn't know the plans of the other members of the Echo Squad. When she knew about this, she had been gathered here by Samu's. Although there was no evidence, she suspected that Samu's had already set her sights on her. "Don't worry, I've thought about it. I think you also understand what will happen if the enemy succeeds in this incident. I don't want to be abandoned by others." How could Crisp not know the situation of his subordinates? He was also cheated by his own Z government when he was in Raccoon City, so he resolutely chose to cooperate with Samu's. Sienna was the person sent by the traditional forces of the Lighthouse National Military to supervise them. Oh, now there is another task: to monitor the situation of GIMZ. The other members of the Echo Squad also knew this, but they all tacitly didn't point it out. Sienna thought about it carefully and understood the other party's concerns. Her real profession should be an agent or spy. Even if she lost her job, she would just return to her original intelligence department. But the others were basically soldiers. With this criminal record, they could only be expelled from the army and become mercenaries for the rest of their lives. Even Lawrence Camubala, the team's field virologist, had this criminal record and couldn't find a good job afterwards. He could only work for the underworld. So people like Crisp wouldn't go crazy with Sienna. "Although we didn't complete the mission, the Lighthouse Nation military will only think that we did a good job." The Lighthouse Nation representative patted me on the shoulder to show encouragement. "Besides, if this is discovered, will it really not affect the Lighthouse Nation itself?" FBC arranged for the reporter to find all the members of the investigation team to come and catch the stolen goods, but left no room for maneuver. "Is this what your superiors want?" Crisp continued, "Don't forget that our spy identities are directly exposed in GIMZ. Wouldn't Captain Samu's come to divert the trouble?" Samu smiled and shook his head when he heard the other party's words, and said, "You have to ask the boss. I don't know if he has any evidence." "Haha, the intelligence support behind this matter is also given by the boss, right?" Samus has been busy in the camp, but he has no time to investigate these, so Crisp has this guess. The wolves and others are also curious about this. That's right, Samus replied, and didn't say more intelligence. Although his boss was not here, Samus still gave his boss a wave of prestige. Not to mention the details can better deter the Echo team. Luo Guang was very vigilant about FBC, so he had used the resources of the Donald family to infiltrate FBC as early as when FBC was established. After obtaining the artificial intelligence Red Queen, he took advantage of the fact that F.B.C's network defense was not fully established to let the Red Emperor enter its internal system, leaving a backdoor and real-time monitoring. Therefore, the content of Morgan's video call was basically captured by the Red Emperor. Therefore, Luo Guang had known the plan of Morgan and the person in charge of the Harlan City incident for a long time, and that was how the FBC evidence in Jill and Samu's hands came from. This is not a court, and there is no need to rely on complete evidence. Even if there is no conviction in the end, I believe other people will have a sense of distrust towards the FBC. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. Morgan's plan is not too advanced. He despises GIMZ too much. Therefore, after confirming the opponent's plan, Luo Guang directly decided on the policy of taking advantage of the opponent's plan. Then he left it to Samus to take care of it, and he became a hands-off shopkeeper, and went away happily. The reporter was able to sneak into the BSAA camp because Sams deliberately let him in. How could the fake ID that was usually used to deceive ordinary people possibly deceive the guards here? The name list and ID photos of the entire investigation team are posted in the guard room, out of sight of outsiders. The guy thought that no one noticed his actions, but he didn't know that when he was following the contact, Victor from the Wolves also dressed as a reporter and followed behind him. Crisp looked at Sienna and said, "So I'm sorry, we didn't tell you these things." Sienna's face didn't look good, thinking that you are fine, but I have a big problem. She was not from the army at first, and she had no service experience before joining the Echo Squad. She was young and beautiful, and she was not from an official background. Sienna, who walks among dignitaries and celebrities, hooked a Z government official at a banquet, but it was actually the other party who hooked her. In the end, she was hired by the organization behind this person, and the name of this organization was Organization X. Sienna was actually from the American branch of Organization X. But because of Sienna's criminal record, she is not an official member of Organization X and does not know the existence of the family organization. Next, she was assigned to work as a spy for the traditional forces of the Lighthouse country's military. Finally, she was sent by the military to the GIMZ force to become a double agent. "You are forcing me to betray my superiors." Sienna finally squeezed out these words from the corner of her mouth. Caroline said, a little dissatisfied, "It was you who betrayed us first." They originally thought that Sienna was the same as themselves, but they didn't expect that the other party had another relationship. It was good that they didn't expose it and let her go. "Okay, I accept the decision. So what are you going to do next?" Sienna seemed to have given up. Crisp replied, "Not very good. It's not like we haven't considered your situation as a teammate. When we were pretending to extract the blood of the zombie virus, you were not there, and from that angle you couldn't see our little moves." Marisa, the demolition expert of the Echo team, has a better relationship with Sienna and said, "This is an excuse we specially prepared for you. This excuse may not be accepted by the higher-ups." "So what?" Medical soldier Harley said nonchalantly, "The sky is high and birds can fly, what else can they do to you?" Sienna nodded. It seemed that her teammates were not so heartless and wanted to break up with her. It is true that she is a double agent. She cannot be a spy for the military but can still be a spy for Organization X. She is still valuable. Next, it depends on how she responds to the above questions. Tonight is destined to be a sleepless night. A large group of people interrogated the reporter, and then the two lighthouse country representatives from the NATO investigation team and the international investigation team secretly discussed the matter. Then the representatives of NATO's lighthouse countries went to discuss the issue with representatives of other 5 permanent members. The representative from the international investigation team, who knew about the Harlan virus handover incident, approached Jill, hoping to talk alone. What Jill said before made him have to pay attention to why he singled out himself and said in advance that he hoped he would give her a satisfactory answer. It seemed that there was a deeper meaning. The two came to Jill's office at the camp. "Minister Gill, let me just say it without beating around the bush. Do you know the mastermind behind the slander case?" The representative of the lighthouse country just sat down and asked straight to the point. Jill nodded and replied, "Isn't it difficult to guess this? First of all, there are the beneficiaries after the success of this conspiracy, and then there are the forces that can influence the lighthouse country's military to carry out certain actions. It seems that the country is not an iron barrel. One piece." She finally mocked that after the Raccoon City incident, she also had a lot of resentment towards the lighthouse country. The representatives of the Lighthouse Nation knew that Jill was a survivor of the Raccoon City incident, and the survivors of that incident obviously did not have a good impression of the Lighthouse Nation. So he didn't dwell on this, but thought about Gill's words. The vested interests must be those related to the biochemical crisis, and the scope has narrowed down to biochemical terrorist organizations, drug companies, and anti-biochemical organizations such as BSAA or FBC. The BSAA and GIMZ units were the victims of this incident, so they can be ruled out first. The next step is people who can influence the military of the lighthouse country. Then FBC, an organization with a military background in the lighthouse country, is the number one suspect. Soon, the representative of the Lighthouse Nation knew who was behind the scenes that Jill hinted at. The reason why the other party did not name the specific person might be because he did not want to confirm the truth, or he might have other motives. This is not reasoning, but a hint from the other party. So he didn't bother about why Jill thought the man behind the scenes had the ability to influence the military. Could it be a coincidence? He clearly remembered what Jill had said. A satisfactory answer. Could it be that the other party had evidence of F.B.C's involvement in the conspiracy? If that was the case, then the troubles of the lighthouse country were not over yet. This chapter is not over yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Are you talking about the organization starting with F? I didn't say anything. Jill didn't make it clear, but the representative felt that he was right, so he decided to negotiate and test on this basis. But I don't understand what good this would do to the organization. Because we perform too well. If we can't compare the good, then we'll compare the bad, and the easiest way is to throw dirty water. Jill was also very angry when she first knew about this, but after hearing what Samus said, she now felt that this was a good thing. It can turn crisis into opportunity and bring benefits to the BSAA organization. Jill, who felt that Samus was a role model worth learning from, continued, "They obviously have the most powerful antibiochemical power in the world, but the results are too bad, aren't they? For example, the Portland incident and the Harlan incident here did not show the strength of that organization. On the contrary, our BSAA organization achieved greater results." The representative of the lighthouse country had to nod in agreement. This was a fact, but he still defended the FBC, saying, "The leader of the organization also knows this. In fact, it is because the organization has just been established, but the components inside are complicated, so it has not yet been able to fully exert its full strength." This is what Morgan said at the FBC report meeting. When he said this, he thought of a possibility and said, "Is it possible that some people from some internal forces did this? And the organization actually doesn't know this?" Jill sneered, making the representative's heart feel like it was tightened and stopped beating at that moment. "I thought so at first, but it seems that this matter was proposed by the person at the top. Do you have evidence? Then it depends on what you think of the Lighthouse Nation. Jill usually can't say such words, and Samu's taught her temporarily. Jill's memory has been strengthened by the former Shinra virus, and her learning ability is also not weak. Although the FBC is unkind and unjust, it is also an important antibiochemical force in the world, so it is a bad thing for the antibiochemical cause to kill the FBC on our side. So Samu's mentioned using this incident to gain more benefits for the BSAA, such as sponsorship in the form of funds and personnel. What Jill meant by this was that if the Lighthouse Nation wanted to conceal it and gave a satisfactory answer, then the BSAA could have no evidence. Conversely, if the answer could not satisfy the BSAA, it could also have evidence. The representative of the Lighthouse Nation was silent, thinking about whether he had the authority to directly agree to the other party on this matter. Finally, he decided, I'll go out and make a phone call. Obviously, he couldn't make up his mind. For the sake of his career, it would be better to ask his superior directly. After a while, the other party came back and said, $50 million in sponsorship fees, and we also have a batch of weapons and equipment that are about to be retired, including armed helicopters and armored vehicles, with a total value of $340 million, all of which can be sponsored to BSAA for use. When Jill heard this, she did not immediately show her impatience. Instead, she looked confident, as if she felt that the value of the evidence in her hands was not lower than these. She only heard her ask, "Your superior should have said more than these words, right? For example, the premise." The representative of the Lighthouse country replied, "Yes, we need to know whether you have control of the evidence." His superior was worried that the other party would cheat for sponsorship with empty evidence. Jill took out a USB flash drive from her trouser pocket, connected it to her computer, and then turned the screen to the other party's side. After a few operations, she pressed the confirmation button, and the video on the screen began to play. Is this Morgan's inaugural speech? The Lighthouse Nation representative recognized it immediately, and then looked at Jill with a slightly puzzled look. Remember Morgan's voice, right? Jill played the next file after receiving a positive answer from the other party. It was an audio clip, and the content in it was exactly the conversation between Morgan and the person in charge of Harlan City. After listening to this audio clip, the Lighthouse Nation representative had already believed it for the most part, and said, "Who is the other voice?" "According to our investigation, it is the person in charge of the Harlan incident." "Is this evidence enough?" Jill crossed her hands in front of her chin and looked at the other party, as if she could produce more evidence if it was not enough. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 337. This is the result of the incident. When Samus had solved all the problems, the morning sun had risen. After she confirmed the situation with Jill, she called Luo Guang, who was sunbathing. First, the BSAA received a batch of military aid from the Lighthouse Nation, which enhanced their ability to attack and eliminate zombies. Not only that, the Lighthouse Nation will lobby other NATO member countries and their subordinates to allow the BSAA to receive the same treatment as the FBC. The second thing is acceptable to the Lighthouse Nation. Judging from the Harlan incident, the BSAA is obviously capable of taking more responsibilities. It is not a good thing for the FBC, but in the view of the Lighthouse Nation, this can promote competition between the two antibiochemical organizations, and the Lighthouse Nation can benefit its own country as long as it acts as a referee to confirm that the two sides are in a healthy competition. So the representative of the Lighthouse Nation will strive for the consent of his superiors and agree to Jill's conditions. He was not worried that other countries would not agree, because the performance of BSAA in the Harlan incident was obvious to all. For the BSAA where Jill was, the issue of law enforcement power of various countries had always troubled them. To some extent, taking this law enforcement power might be more valuable than those military aids. Originally, this matter should have been taken care of by O'Brien, and it would probably take a lot of time and cost to achieve the same effect. But now it was easy to reach an agreement with only two people, and it won such a great benefit for BSAA, which made Jill feel a little unreal. O'Brien, who was still asleep and was awakened by Jill's phone call, was also confused and thought he was dreaming. After reaching an agreement with BSAA, the representative of the lighthouse country did not go back to find the reporter. First, he exchanged information with the representative of the country of the NATO investigation team, and then went to find Sams. As Sams expected, there was no time to rest tonight. The lighthouse representative did not ask Jill about the situation on the GIMZ side, nor did he ask the mercenaries if they knew who was behind this. Because this incident happened in the GIMZ side, he didn't believe that Samus and the others didn't know the ins and outs of this. This matter was indeed the fault of the FBC, and they were tricked by others, which made him very dissatisfied with Morgan, but there was nothing he could do. His current task was to clean up the F.B.CSS. The conversation with Samus was not bumpy. Samus was more difficult to deal with than Jill. The lighthouse representative felt that the other party would be very outstanding even as a diplomat. The feeling of communicating with Samus was not like communicating with a decisive soldier, but with a shrewd politician. The final agreement was $10 million, which was much less than the BSAA side, but this was decided by Samus based on the current size of the GIMZ side. She had thought about this amount specifically, so that she would not suffer a loss, nor would the Lighthouse Nation think that she was asking for too much. The Lighthouse Nation representative was relieved after hearing the other party's offer, and also felt that the other party was very sensible. His superiors gave him the authority to pay within $20 million. As long as he made a little effort, the matter would turn out to be that he insisted on his country's interests in the negotiations with the other party in order to save money for the country, and finally saved $10 million for the Z government through his own efforts. Now that Samus was so sensible, he had to return the favor. After communicating with his superiors, he said that he had won a United Nations Peace Medal of Honor for the GIMZ Force to commend the GIMZ Force's contribution to antibiochemicals around the world. This would not only enhance the international status of the GIMZ Force, but also allow the Lighthouse Nation to stand out, express its determination to fight against biochemicals, and establish the image of a responsible country. At the same time, they took the opportunity to invite Wusong, the boss of the GIMZ Force, to the United Nations headquarters of the Lighthouse country, which also made it easier for the intelligence agencies to contact and understand this mysterious boss in case of emergency. This matter can be said to kill two birds with one stone. As for medals and the like, Samus didn't care. She mainly valued the effect of this matter on the reputation of the GIMZ Force. With this commendation, I think more and more countries will ask her to deal with biochemical crisis incidents. Solving biochemical crises is what she cares about most. Luo Guan wore sunglasses, basked in the sun, looked at the bikini beauties on the beach, and replied, "You did a good job this time. But be careful of the retaliation from the FBC." After seeing off Jasmine and the other two, he came to Georgia in the Caucasus region. As always, he started to enjoy life after completing a job. "Boss Wu, are we going to let it go? Although we have gained a lot of benefits, the FBC has not paid a price." Samus did not like what his boss said. If there is any revenge, it should be them who will take revenge on the FBC, otherwise the other party will not know to restrain themselves. Luo Guang nodded and said, "I know, but let's not talk about revenge anymore. I have other plans here, so I will not go through the GIMZ army." He is no longer a newcomer to the world. He has deep roots in this world and has many resources to use. He has both black and white forces, so it is easy for him to cause trouble for the FBC. And these resources have nothing to do with the GIMZ troops, so they are not afraid of being tracked down by the FBC. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. I understand. Next is the matter in Harlan City. The FBC has a new move and is preparing to retake the Harlan Hotel, but I suspect it is to cover up another operation. Sams said, their helicopters are out in full force, but 2 helicopters did not come back at the same time, so I suspect that these 2 helicopters have other missions and went to other places. These 2 helicopters are the FBC troops who went to the Harlan Temple in the Old City to investigate first. The Harlan Hotel tragedy did not hinder the F.B.C's plan. If the helicopters are all heading to Harlan City, they may be heading to the Old City, Luo Guang guessed. Samus felt the same way and said, if that's the case, maybe the FBC has received other intelligence. The joint forces of various countries have assembled, and they will go to the Old City soon, and may clash with the F.B.C. The multinational coalition is not afraid of the F.B.C. Luo Guang laughed, he had a hunch that the FBC would be defeated again. Samus replied, that's right. But the Turkish representative was there yesterday, and Suleiman, the head of the Turkish military, led the special forces to the BSAA to gather last night. I think the FBC should also know about this. It doesn't matter. Anti-biological is the first goal. The FBC can solve the problem of the Institute before the joint forces arrive, which is also their strength, Luo Guang said. There is one more thing. The Lighthouse Nation has contacted the head of the FBC in Harlan. I don't know what they discussed. The FBC said that they would provide us with a Harlan virus inhibitor. It is definitely not a one-time deal. You should be careful that the FBC will make a fuss about this. Of course I understand. Samus also thought of this. After explaining the matter of the Void Cult, Luo Guang hung up the phone. As if seeing the right time, a beautiful woman wearing only half a bikini came over with a drink. Hi handsome guy, are you alone? Luo Guang was very relaxed, but Morgan was very uncomfortable at this time. At this time, he already knew that his plan to frame him had failed, and the other party reacted quickly, and he mobilized those reporters to report the incident. Although those reporters did not know who was behind the scenes, the words in the report were as dirty as they could be. Conspiracy theorists like this kind of inconclusive things the most, which accelerated the spread of this matter. Just when he was thinking about asking someone to guide the public opinion, someone from the Lighthouse country called him directly. The person in charge of the Harlan incident was not qualified to discuss these things with the Lighthouse country government. Morgan wanted to quibble, but the Lighthouse country seemed to have confirmed that it was the FBC who did it, and it was useless for him to say anything. We have covered up this incident for you, the person from the Lighthouse country said in a bad tone. Please focus on the right things and don't always think about those crooked things. Received. Morgan gritted his teeth and suppressed his anger and replied, and then he heard the other party snort and hung up the phone. After being humiliated, he couldn't bear it anymore, and used both hands to sweep the things on the table to the ground. In the end, she still used the desktop cleaning technique to vent her inner resentment. If she kept holding it in, he might faint from anger. Assistant Field, who was outside the door, heard the noise inside and did not go in. He just sighed in his heart. No matter whether Morgan's anger would subside or not, he had to be careful. Field. After a while, Morgan's voice sounded as Field expected. Field walked into the office and looked at Morgan without looking away. He did not pay any attention to the things on the ground, let alone pick them up. The things on Morgan's desk might be confidential, so Field would not pick them up without his order. Without waiting for his assistant to ask, Morgan said, "Go check our computer system and the people in the headquarters." The Lighthouse country did not clearly state what the evidence on the BSAA side was. but he and the reporter were in contact with a fake identity and a voice changer, and he did not mention his identity and purpose throughout the whole process, so the biggest possibility was that there was an insider. Insider, as usual, Field asked one more question to confirm Morgan's meaning. Morgan nodded, only you know about this matter. Boss, do you have any other instructions? Nothing else. Just focus on the task I just gave you. Morgan asked Field to go out, and then he stood up and cleaned up the things on the ground. Field was the only person he could trust, so it didn't matter if he saw these things, but he still had to keep himself calm in front of other men. Although he was very angry now, it didn't help the current situation, so he had to think carefully about what FBC should do next. Other plans were put aside for the time being. The internal ghost issue had not been resolved, and any of his future plans were floating clouds that could be broken up at any time. Therefore, the F.B.C's main focus now is on Harlan City and showing off in front of investigation teams from various countries. Just thinking that BSAA had found the Institute one step ahead of him, the anger in his heart began to surge in his heart again. After taking a few deep breaths, he contacted the person in charge of the Harlan incident. Do you know about the BSAA side operating with the multinational coalition forces? This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. Yes, their destination is the Harran Temple, the person in charge replied with a not so good look on his face. Then what? Morgan was stunned. Why didn't he say anything further? The person in charge said, our advance investigation team at the Harran Temple encountered an attack last night and suffered heavy losses. Hearing this, Morgan felt like vomiting blood, and asked with a trembling voice, is it the night demon again? It's human beings, people from the Void Cult. Our troops investigating the Void Cult clashed with those believers and wanted to force their way in, but those believers also had guns and were outnumbered, so in the end our troops did not enter. The person in charge of the Harlan incident has been busy since yesterday, and was bypassed by representatives of the Lighthouse Nation to directly contact Morgan, so he didn't know much about the frame-up. Then last night, our unit was attacked. Our troops won't be wiped out by a group of civilians, right? Morgan asked doubtfully. The person in charge replied, not only civilians, but also zombies, they all attacked our people together. What? Although he lost another manpower, Morgan grasped the information contained in it. He immediately ordered an investigation into this matter. How did those people control the zombies? The attack on the FBC was initiated by Jasmine's fanatical guards. In the eyes of these fanatics, they did not violate the Virgin Mary's instructions to deal with zombies, but instead believed that this was a spirit of not wasting. The person in charge of the Harlan incident smiled bitterly and said, also, the survivors of the army this morning were contacted and inquired by the National Alliance Army. It turns out that BSAA already knows about the Void Sect and has investigated it in detail. After speaking, he told Morgan about the effect of the blue mist and the night demons under the Harlan Temple, and continued, even the National Alliance Army invited those of us there to join their troops. The reason I focus on mentioning this is because FBC did not receive an invitation at all before departure. In his opinion, the other party was a bit insulting and giving alms to him. However, Morgan did not seize this point. Instead, he thought this was a good opportunity and said, no matter what, let them perform better and seize the opportunity. I've already warned them. Although the person in charge of the Harlan incident was a little angry at the other party's actions, he did not let his subordinates refuse the invitation just because of his anger. He even told them to keep their tails between their legs. He could still tell what was light and what was serious. There is also the matter of blue mist. Let the Research Institute study whether it can be used to solve the matter of Harlan Hotel. As soon as he heard about the effect of the blue mist, Morgan thought of taking advantage of this and wanted to regain the F.B.C's style in the Harlan Hotel. Received after receiving the instruction, the person in charge confirmed that there was nothing else and hung up the phone. Morgan, who was already a little old, leaned back on the leather chair and rubbed the bridge of his nose with his hand. He still had things to deal with next, and now he was just taking a break from his busy schedule. Buzz, buzz. Suddenly, the mobile phone in his pocket vibrated, and someone called his private number. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Miao. Chapter 338. Well, the world has gotten harder. Luo Guang returned to the secret base in the Caucasus after only one day's rest. Looking at the recent news, he sighed with emotion. Red Emperor's stereoscopic projection stood behind Luo Guang and replied, according to database speculation and recent surveillance analysis, there are no other pharmaceutical companies behind these two incidents. Umbrella was not at ease with other companies in the Global Pharmaceutical Federation, and had long used its prosperous position at the time to send people to infiltrate those companies. Coupled with the development of Umbrella's computer industry, it used to buy and sell its own computers to other pharmaceutical companies, so most of the information from those companies was almost transparent to Hong Huang and Luo Guang. It's not like those companies haven't thought about building their own computer systems and network systems, but the cost is too high, and because Luo Guang only asked them to collect intelligence passively, not many of the insiders have been discovered by those companies for the time being. With the collapse of Umbrella, some pharmaceutical companies want to recruit talents from Umbrella's computer department, but how can the working environment and treatment offered by those pharmaceutical companies be comparable to those of large-scale companies that have been suppressed by Umbrella? Computer company. In order not to be taken advantage of by other pharmaceutical companies, the pharmaceutical companies that finally had that idea had to give up these computer talents and concentrate on grabbing virus research talents and Umbrella's legacy. After all, network security in this era is not taken seriously by most people. On the other hand, Luo Guang, who had his account stolen and his computer poisoned when he was a child, naturally knows the power and role of cyber warfare. In the past, it was due to limited funds, equipment, and technology, but now that he has obtained the Red Emperor, he has no shortage of these, so he naturally begins to pay attention to it. After all, he values intelligence the most. Are those companies still grabbing Umbrella's inheritance? They don't have a long memory, Luo Guang said after hearing the Red Emperor report the actions of those companies. Not to mention that Umbrella's biggest legacy was swallowed up by Luo Guang. He also set traps for those leftover materials, specially used for fishing and law enforcement. He first released the news and received an intelligence fee from those companies. Then find the local Z government to organize it and get a reporting bonus. The local Z government can also use this matter to negotiate with those companies to get a local sponsorship fee. No matter how poor the local Z government is, it will naturally not be stingy with the reporting bonus. Then he used the videos of these companies going to Umbrella's research institute to blackmail them, and also demanded a hush fee. Finally, Luo Guang reported it to BSAA so that O'Brien and the others could gain political achievements and severely damage those pharmaceutical companies with malicious intentions. It can be said that you eat more than you can eat, squeeze out as much as possible and attack those bad companies. Moreover, Luo Guang has prepared different vests for different steps, and he is not afraid that those companies will discover his conspiracy. If he is to blame, it is their company itself. It is not that there were no pharmaceutical companies that wanted to resist being blackmailed and sent private mercenaries to kill the people who asked for hush money. But in the end, they attacked the intelligence base of another pharmaceutical company, and the two sides ended up fighting. At this point, the company's hush money is not that important to him, so Luo Guang will help confirm the fact that he takes the blame for the company's extortion. Therefore, after the collapse of Umbrella, those pharmaceutical companies did not gain much. Instead, they came back with a lot of trouble, and naturally they had no energy to cause trouble. Then the T-virus they have is the one circulating on the black market. Although it was not stated clearly in the news, according to the information searched by Red Emperor, both incidents were caused by the T-virus, So Luo Guang asked. The black market has high liquidity and it is difficult to trace its origin, so T-virus has always been listed for sale on the black market. Luo Guang also used phishing law enforcement to find those sellers to buy goods. The result was either phishing law enforcement by agents or anti-biochemical organizations, or counterfeit goods dealers. In fact, people who possess T-virus usually have connections and know their potential users, so they will not choose to sell them on the black market. Although nothing was found, the phishing law enforcement carried out by Luo Guang and those organizations can be regarded as confusing the black market to a certain extent, making buyers wonder whether the sale and purchase of biochemical viruses are all phishing law enforcement. So as long as there is any trouble, their deal will immediately fall through. There are no clues now, the Red Emperor replied. The biohazard incident reported in the news occurred in Nerima Ward, Tokyo, Japan, and no bioterrorist organization issued a responsible statement. Although the Japanese government has sealed off this area as soon as possible, the population density there is so high that it is still too difficult to rely solely on local police and weak self-defense forces to blockade the area. In the end, we had to rely on the Japanese lighthouse troops to finally stabilize the situation. However, the exact number of casualties has not yet been released, but it should be very large. Almost at the same time, a biohazard incident also occurred in Italy. It was done by a biochemical terrorist organization called Greyhound. They issued a responsible statement and asked the Italian government to release their imprisoned members, otherwise they will continue to launch new terrorist attacks. The Greyhound organization is a terrorist organization created by a group of nationalists. They use the banner of opposing urban development and protecting the environment, but in fact their real purpose is to overthrow the existing government structure of Italy. This organization acts fiercely and decisively and is well known in the industry. Therefore, it has been targeted by the Italian government and many members have been arrested. According to the information obtained from the interrogation, the leader of the Greyhounds is named Jack Norman, and someone seems to be secretly funding them. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. Although the GIMZ force still has a reserve force on standby at the South African base, the governments of the two countries where the biochemical crisis occurred did not send an invitation. The Japanese government found people from the Far East branch of the BSAA, while Italy found people from the FBC. Although Japan is under the command of the lighthouse country, the FBC force is stationed in North America and Europe, and Italy also had a biochemical crisis, so it found the Far East branch of the BSAA instead of the anti-biochemical organization FBC under its father. Although it involves the BSAA, O'Brien and the director of the Far East branch did not ask the GIMZ force for help. In addition, GIMZ is now balanced in income and expenditure, so there is no need to take those two cases, so Luo Guang did not take the initiative to contact them for promotion. He was looking through the information collected by Hong Huang, thinking, and asked, "Is this all the information about the Greyhound organization?" Yes, although the name of the leader is known, there are too many people with the same name and surname, and it is impossible to screen out the target person, Hong Huang replied. Luo Guang had heard the name of this Greyhound organization in the game Resident Evil Revelations before he crossed over. Although there are not many specific settings in the game, there are still several important points. The famous Terra Grigia panic in the history of the Resident Evil game was created by this Greyhound organization, and their mastermind was Morgan of FBC. So he said to Hong Huang, "Keep an eye on the situation at FBC, especially the flow of funds." The information provided by Hong Huang mentioned that Greyhound received anonymous sponsorship funds. When she heard her master say this, she understood that Luo Guang suspected that FBC secretly sponsored Greyhound. But she didn't understand what the FBC was doing. However, her master didn't say it, and she didn't ask. After Luo Guang learned what happened in the world when he was working in Harlan City, he began to review the situation at the GIMZ Force Research Institute. There were two projects that needed his review, which was actually the institute asking him for money and people. It was better than he expected. There were two solutions to the problem of animal fungus. The first was to genetically modify a fungus-eating ladybug, which was specifically used to solve the animal fungus. This fungus-eating ladybug was going to use a ladybug called cocksporin as the original body. This cocksporin ladybug is a relatively rare fungus-eating ladybug that has no industrial breeding technology so far. It is the nemesis of powdery mildew of crops. Although it has not been industrially bred for the time being, this ladybug is the most suitable ladybug for transformation. Even before the transformation, this kind of ladybug of coccinellide can eat a small amount of animal fungus, and there is no sign of mutation. After testing, there is no animal fungus in its body. Because these researchers are not breeding experts, the institute made an application to Luo Guang, hoping to find a few breeding experts to assist. There is nothing to refuse this request. After Luo Guang directly replied that he agreed, he took the initiative to contact Lieutenant General Li of the mysterious country and asked him to find someone. Direct public recruitment is not difficult, but the affairs of the GIMZ Force Institute are actually confidential, so it not only requires strong professional ability, but also requires confidentiality awareness and noble character. Therefore, it is most suitable for Luo Guang to directly ask Lieutenant General to arrange experts, but he will also go to the institute to check it out later, because he is afraid of encountering experts. The second solution is also related to the ladybug of coccinellide. It was mentioned earlier that these ladybugs did not have any adverse reactions after eating animal fungi, so the researchers immediately began to study why based on this phenomenon. Finally, a substance that can kill the beast fungus was extracted from the ladybug, but because there is not much of this substance in the ladybug, the beast fungus can only be eaten in small quantities. The researchers are now conducting research and analysis to see if this substance can be artificially produced, otherwise they have to return to the issue of industrialized breeding. Both projects require a lot of funds, so Luo Guang waved his hand and allocated funds to the special account there, and told them to solve the problem of large-scale breeding. As long as the breeding problem of this ladybug is solved, even if the problem of beast fungus cannot be solved, he can still make a lot of money with this technology. The matter of the research institute has also been solved. Next, he will wait for the Virgin Mary to come and arrange for them to live and work here. Just when Luo Guang was sitting on the Diaotai at the Caucasus base, he received a call. The island of Sabatai, where Alex Kafka, formerly known as Alex Wesker, is located, has welcomed an uninvited guest, Albert Wesker. Alex has been prepared for Albert's uninvited visit, and it is only a matter of time. Therefore, her subordinates also knew the appearance of the macho man in sunglasses, and no one overestimated their own abilities to stop him, thus causing unnecessary casualties. Alex, who knew that Albert appeared at the dock, immediately took her latest research results and her confidant steward to leave the island by private plane, leaving Wesker empty-handed. Regardless of Luo Guang's hint or not, Alex had no intention of meeting or cooperating with Albert. She only planned to dissect and study him. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. Because Spencer often compared Albert with herself, and her own illness made her jealous and hate him. And from the information collected by Spencer, we can know Albert's character, so in Alex's view, there can't be two tigers in one mountain, even if it's a man and a woman, it's difficult for the two to live in peace. Both of them think they are unique elites, so how can they be willing to live under someone else's roof or be inferior to others? Luo Guang also knows this, so he didn't force Alex to join his forces. Although from the result, Alex is now working for him. Wesker did not make a big noise on the island, but dressed up as a reporter, trying to investigate the situation of Umbrella Corporation here on the pretext of investigating the rise of Sabatai Island. The result disappointed him a little. Everyone here lived and worked in peace and contentment, and there was no research institute or industry left by Umbrella Corporation. In the mouths of the islanders, the name Alex Kafka appeared frequently like a savior. If there really was a research institute of Umbrella Corporation here, these islanders who were easily caught as guinea pigs should not have this reaction. Now he has also encountered a lot of troubles, and his HCF organization has been targeted. Especially after he fought with the mysterious special forces on the holy island of the Church of Light, H.C.F's open industry was soon hit by other companies. Albert can ignore the gains and losses of these industries, but his men can't. After losing these industries, F.B.C's ability to make money has at least decreased by 30%, and research costs a lot of money. In order to study the Plaka parasite that he had worked so hard to get, he had to find a way to get enough money. After collecting various intelligence, he found that although Umbrella Corporation had collapsed, it seemed that no organization or force had obtained all the legacy of Umbrella Corporation. In this case, as a member of Spencer's Wesker project, he thought he had the right of inheritance, so he sent people out to inquire about Umbrella Corporation. Of course, he did not forget the losses he had suffered in the Caucasus region, and sent people to inquire about the latest situation. Unfortunately, as of today, he did not know what he had missed, nor did he know that Luo Guang had already obtained all the legacy of Umbrella Corporation. Luo Guang had also been prepared for this, and built a ruin not far from the original entrance, and then covered up the main body. The intelligence officer who came over did not find anything unusual, and because of Luo Guang's antibiochemical performance on Lotford Island, Wesker only thought that Umbrella Corporation's base there was destroyed by Luo Guang. The only useful information he finally got was that before Umbrella Corporation officially collapsed, a large amount of funds flowed to this island. After an in-depth investigation, Albert still did not find any trace of Umbrella Corporation, but the funds flowed here to build the industrial industry on the island. He was familiar with the nature of Umbrella Corporation and thought it was strange. So he decided not to miss any possibility and meet with the island owner Alex before leaving. The other party happened to be on a business trip, so he did not chase after her, but stayed here to rest and wait for her.